Hey, Wide Awake family. If you see this, it's your sign to smash that like button. Yes, you listening right now. That way YouTube shows you more amazing stories like this one. We love you all. Now enjoy the stories.
There are breakups that end with tears, some with yelling, and some with silence. Then there's whatever Luke did to me, which I still don't have a word for. Imagine walking up to your car one morning, turning the key, and hearing your own voice arguing through the speakers instead of music. That's how I found out Luke had broken into my car, not to steal anything, not to destroy it, but to replace my entire playlist with recordings of our old fights. Luke and I met through a mutual friend during college. He wasn't the kind of guy who stood out right away, but once he talked, everyone listened. He was sharp, confident, the kind of person who always sounded like he was right. He'd studied sound engineering, so he was obsessed with audio equipment. His apartment looked like a miniature studio, wires everywhere, speakers stacked in corners, random microphones hanging off stands like creepy little sentinels. We started dating during my senior year. He was funny in his own sarcastic way, and at first, I liked that he was passionate about his work. He'd record anything, birds outside, his own voice reading poetry, even conversations at parties. He called it capturing reality. I should have seen that as a red flag. It wasn't until about 6 months in that I noticed how controlling he was. If I didn't answer his texts right away, he'd call 10 times in a row. He wanted to know where I was, who I was with, even what music I was listening to. He said he just liked knowing what kind of mood I was in. When I tried to set boundaries, he said, "I just care about you too much to not be curious." We started fighting a lot after that. He'd twist my words, act like I was overreacting, then record the arguments on his phone so we can go back and understand each other better. That's what he told me the first time I caught him doing it. I was too tired to argue anymore, so I let it slide. But every time we fought after that, I'd notice his phone sitting somewhere in the room, screen glowing, always recording. When I finally broke up with him, he didn't yell. He just said, "You'll come back when you realize I'm the only one who really listens." It sounded creepy even then, but I just walked out. I blocked him, deleted his number, and tried to move on. Weeks passed, and I thought that was it. Then one morning, I got in my car to head to work, started the engine, and immediately heard something strange. The song that usually played, an upbeat track I always started my mornings with, was replaced by silence for a few seconds. Then my voice filled the car, my actual voice. It took me a moment to recognize it. It was from an argument we had months before. I could hear myself shouting, "You're recording again, aren't you?" And then his voice replying, calm and smug, "I just want you to hear how you sound." I froze. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. The file played on, our voices looping through a dozen fights I had tried to forget. Every one of them edited together, clean, seamless. It sounded like a twisted podcast. I turned off the stereo and just sat there. Then I noticed something else. The car door handle was scratched. Not badly, but enough to see someone and tried to open it. My stomach dropped. I called the police, but there wasn't much they could do. Nothing was stolen, no damage besides a small scratch, and no clear proof it was him. They told me to change my locks, maybe install a camera, and avoid contact. That same night, I checked the USB drive that had all my playlists. Every file had been renamed with labels like Listen Closely 1, Truth 2, Waco 3. They weren't random. Each one was an argument we had. He cut them up, mixed them with faint background music, and saved them under those names. It was like he turned our fights into songs. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I texted him from a friend's phone. "You broke into my car. That's illegal." He replied 2 minutes later, "I didn't break anything. I just left something you needed to hear." After that, I stopped feeling angry. I started feeling scared. Over the next week, small things started happening. I'd get in my car and find the volume turned up to max. My mirrors slightly adjusted. Once, the Bluetooth connected by itself, and a file named Final 8 started playing. It was a recording of me crying after one of our fights. Just crying. Nothing else. He cut everything else out. I turned the car off and walked the rest of the way to work that day. I called a mechanic to check the car, just to make sure he hadn't installed anything weird. They found a small audio recorder hidden under the seat. It had hours of files, mostly silence, but sometimes faint movement, like doors opening or the sound of my voice when I was on the phone in the car. He planted it before we even broke up. I took it straight to the police again. They logged it as evidence but said it would take time to trace. When I told them it was probably my ex, the officer sighed and said, "We see stuff like this more than you think." It made me sick that I wasn't even the first. I changed the locks, installed cameras, moved the car to a garage. I even thought about selling it, but I didn't want to feel like I was letting him win. Instead, I wiped everything, every file, every drive, and replaced my stereo system. I thought that would be the end of it. Then one day, while scrolling through my phone at lunch, I saw a YouTube video linked in a random Reddit thread. The title, "When Love Turns to Noise." I clicked it. My blood ran cold. It was our voices again, the same fights, the same edits. He'd uploaded them, each one titled like tracks on an album. Track 1, The Silence Before. Track 2, You Always Leave. Track 3, Goodbye. The channel name was L&L Sessions. There were comments too, people saying it was haunting, raw, beautiful. They thought it was performance art. Nobody knew they were listening to real people, to my private pain. I reported the channel immediately. It got taken down after a few days, but by then it had thousands of views. A few other accounts had already reposted the clips. They still pop up sometimes. I'll be scrolling late at night and hear my own voice, distorted, buried in someone's ambient remix. It makes my skin crawl. Luke moved out of town soon after that. A mutual friend said he was working on an album. I don't know if that was true, and I don't care. I blocked everyone connected to him. For months, I avoided listening to music at all. Every sound felt suspicious, like there could be something hidden behind it. I even sold my old speakers. Silence felt safer. It's been almost 2 years since then, and I still double-check my car before I start it. I check the mirrors, the seat, even the USB slot. I can't hear my own recorded voice without flinching. The worst part, sometimes I catch myself replaying the arguments in my head, like old songs I can't delete. He made me a prisoner in my own memories. That's the thing people don't get about manipulation. It doesn't always leave bruises. Sometimes it just leaves echoes. I still have the recorder the police gave back after the investigation closed. It sits in a box under my bed. I've thought about throwing it away, but part of me keeps it as proof. Proof that it really happened, that I'm not just remembering it wrong. Whenever I walk past a studio or see someone mixing sound on a computer, I get this little shiver in my chest, because I know what it feels like to have your life turned into someone else's art project. I know what it sounds like when love becomes noise. And I know that no matter how many playlists I make now, I'll never hit play without checking first.
I didn't want to believe it, but something in me already knew. All the weird excuses, the constant control, it made sense now. She wanted to keep me close, and when she felt me slipping, she created the biggest reason she could think of. When I asked her again about going with her to her next appointment, she exploded. Said I didn't trust her, said I was stressing her out, said I was hurting the baby. That line hit different now. It sounded rehearsed. I didn't argue. I just said okay and hung up. I knew if I tried to reason with her, she'd twist it again. I stopped answering her texts. Then she emailed me saying she'd lost the baby. 2 days later, she said she'd lied, but only because she wanted to see if I'd step up. Then she said I'd made her lie by pulling away. The stories kept changing. My friends told me to block her on everything, so I did. She started messaging from fake accounts, sending long paragraphs about how we were meant to be. A week later, she showed up outside my job, crying, holding a box of the baby stuff she'd bought. My manager had to walk her out. After that, she started spreading rumors. She told some people I'd forced her to get rid of the baby. I got messages from mutual friends asking what really happened. I didn't even try to explain anymore. A few months later, one of her old friends messaged me and confirmed it. Andrea had found those ultrasound pictures on Google. She even bragged about how real it looked. Said she wanted to see how far I'd go before I caught on. That line stuck with me. I moved cities a few months later. I needed space. Every time my phone buzzed, I'd get that same rush of anxiety. It took a long time to stop expecting her name to pop up again. Sometimes I wonder what her endgame was. Did she actually think we'd live together and raise an imaginary baby? Or was the lie itself the point, to prove she had power over me, that she could still pull me in even when I tried to get out? Every now and then, someone will mention her. "Hey, didn't you date that girl Andrea?" And I'll just say yeah, and leave it there. I don't tell them the full story anymore. It sounds too unreal. But I remember it all. Every photo, every message, every time she used guilt like a leash. It wasn't just about the fake pregnancy. It was about control. About how easy it is for someone to rewrite your life when you start doubting your own reality. Now, when I start seeing someone new, I move slower. I keep space between what's real and what I want to believe. Because once you've had someone fake a pregnancy just to keep you, you stop assuming people won't cross certain lines. I haven't heard from Andrea in years, but every once in a while, I'll see her name pop up on social media. New haircut, new boyfriend, same kind of posts about new beginnings. I don't click anymore. I just keep scrolling.
There's something weird about hearing your own voice when you don't know it's being recorded. It doesn't sound like you think it would. The pauses, the tone, the parts where you sound angry but you're not. When I first heard one of those clips, I didn't even recognize myself right away. I thought someone was mocking me. Then I read it again, and it hit me. It was me arguing with Adam. We'd been together for almost a year by then. It wasn't a perfect thing, but it wasn't bad either. We met at work. He was the kind of guy who got everyone's attention without trying. Smart, calm, confident. I thought he made me better, like I had to be sharper just to keep up. We clicked fast. Maybe too fast. At first, he made everything feel easy. He helped me prep for presentations, send me coffee when I forgot breakfast, drive me home when I worked late, but he also liked being right. About everything. It started small, like correcting how I pronounced a word or saying I was overreacting when I brought up something that bothered me. Then it turned into full-blown arguments about nothing. The fights got bad. He had this way of staying completely calm while I got frustrated. I'd raise my voice, and he'd just sit there, arms crossed, staring like I was some case study. I remember thinking he probably enjoyed seeing me lose control. One day I got pulled into my manager's office. She said she'd gotten an email from an anonymous source with audio clips attached. She didn't say it directly, but I could tell from her face it was bad. She said it sounded like I was yelling at someone, saying things that made me sound unstable. I didn't even know what she was talking about until she played one. It was me, my voice in my apartment, arguing with Adam about something stupid, who forgot to pay the electric bill. But it was edited, chopped up. You could hear me getting angry, but his voice wasn't there at all. It sounded like I was just screaming into the air. I felt sick. I left the office shaking, trying to remember every fight we'd had, wondering if he'd been recording me that whole time. I confronted him that night. He didn't even deny it. He said he had to protect himself. Said I was emotionally unpredictable, and that it was for his safety. He said it like it was logical, like what he did was some normal precaution. After that, I couldn't stop wondering what else he'd done, if he'd said it to anyone else. If people at work were listening to me fight about bills and chores and whatever else we argued about. I started imagining how it must sound to them, like I was this angry, unstable person who just lost it for no reason. It got worse when he started acting like nothing happened. He'd still text me good morning, still asked if I wanted to grab dinner, still come over like everything was fine. I told him to leave me alone, but he'd always find a reason to reach out. He'd accidentally leave his jacket at my place or text me about something work-related. It felt like he was testing me, trying to see if I'd react. A week later, my boss called again. Another clip. Different fight. Same setup, just me yelling. This time I was saying something about him deleting my contacts, which he actually did one night when I fell asleep. But on the recording, it sounded unhinged, like I was making it up. I stopped going out. I stopped talking to people at work except when I had to. It felt like everyone was watching me differently, like they'd read something or heard something they weren't supposed to. I tried to explain what was happening to one of my coworkers, but even I sounded paranoid. Who records someone just to ruin them? Who would believe that? I decided to check my phone one night, see if there was anything weird. I found an app buried in my files with hours of audio saved. Every fight, every small argument, even moments where we weren't fighting. Just conversations. Me talking about work, about my family, about people I trusted. He'd been recording all of it. It started with a random message from a guy I barely knew. He said, "So you're single now?" I didn't know what he meant, so I ignored it. Then another friend texted, asking if I'd made a new dating profile. I hadn't. I didn't even have one. But that night, someone sent me screenshots of my account using my pictures, my name, and even my old bio from years ago. Except this one was different. It said I was looking for something casual. At first, I thought it was just some catfish thing. People steal photos all the time online. But the more I looked, the weirder it got. The bio had small details only someone close to me would know, like the name of my dog, the city I grew up in, even the type of car I drove. It wasn't just random, it was personal. That's when I thought of Maya. We dated for about 8 months. It wasn't toxic at first, just intense. She was the kind of person who wanted to know everything, where I was, who I was with, what I was thinking. At first, it felt like she cared a lot, and I liked that. I thought it meant she was serious. But after a while, it started to feel like I was being studied. She asked trick questions like, if you could date any of my friends, who would it be? And when I said no one, she pressed me until I answered something. We broke up after she started accusing me of cheating because I liked an old photo of a coworker. She made this huge scene in front of people at a bar, and I just walked out. I blocked her on everything the next morning and thought that was it. It had been almost 3 months since then. I hadn't heard from her. Then this fake profile popped up. The first one was bad enough, but by the end of the week, there were 3 more. Each one had slight changes. Different usernames, different bios, same pictures. One said I was testing loyalty. Another said DM me if you can handle honesty. They all used my real photos. My friends started messaging me about it, asking if I was trying to prank people. I told them it wasn't me, but I could tell some didn't believe me. The fake profiles were flirting with them, saying stuff like, "I always thought you were cute," or "we should have hung out sooner." It was all worded exactly how I talk, like she copied my texting style. That's when it clicked. This wasn't random. Maya was behind it. She was pretending to be me and flirting with my friends just to see who would respond. I didn't even know how to stop it. I tried reporting the profiles, but every time one got taken down, another popped up. Some of my friends sent her messages without realizing it was fake, and then she'd send me screenshots from burner accounts with captions like, "You see who your real friends are." I started losing sleep. I'd wake up to new screenshots every morning, messages I didn't send, conversations that never happened. She'd send them to my coworkers too. One guy from my job told me she'd messaged him pretending to be me and said, "I always thought you looked better in person." I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. I tried calling her once, thinking maybe if I just reasoned with her, she'd stop, but she didn't pick up. Instead, she texted me saying, "You should thank me. Now you know who's loyal." She thought she was helping me. That's the part that got under my skin the most. She didn't see it as revenge. She saw it as some twisted test, like she was protecting me from people who would eventually betray me. After a few weeks, it got worse. She started using the fake profiles to message random people from my contact list, family, coworkers, even my landlord. She'd send weird stuff like, "just thinking about you," or "thanks for always being there." My aunt actually replied and asked if I was okay. I had to explain to her that it wasn't me, that someone was pretending to be me. It felt humiliating. One night, one of my closest friends texted me, furious. He said, "You think it's funny to mess with my girlfriend?" I had no idea what he meant. He sent screenshots from a fake account where I had messaged his girlfriend saying things like, "You can do better," and "if you were single, I'd shoot my shot." That's when I lost it. I went to Maya's apartment. She didn't answer the door, but I knew she was home because her car was in the lot. I texted her and said, "This has to stop." She replied, "You should have just trusted me when I was honest." It made no sense. The next day, I went to the police. I showed them everything, the screenshots, the emails, even messages from her saying stuff like, "I made them look at you differently." They said unless she was threatening me or stealing money, there wasn't much they could do. Catfishing wasn't technically illegal unless it involved fraud. I felt helpless. By that point, I was scared to even go online. I deleted all my profiles. I barely texted anyone. Every message felt like a trap. Every time someone new followed me, I wondered if it was her again. She started sending cryptic emails from random addresses, stuff like, "They weren't who you thought they were," or "It's better this way." Then one night, she sent a message from one of the fake profiles that said, "Do you miss me yet?" That's when I knew she was done hiding. I blocked it, but another appeared the next morning. A week later, she finally slipped up. She used one of the fake accounts to message one of my friends, but accidentally sent a photo that showed her reflection in the window. You could see her face holding her phone. My friend sent it to me immediately. I forwarded it to the police again, and that finally got them to take it seriously. They contacted her, told her to stop or face charges for impersonation and harassment. She deleted everything after that. No more profiles. No more emails. It just ended. But it didn't really end for me. The damage was already done. A few friends stopped talking to me completely, still not sure if I had been involved somehow. My job found out because one of the fake profiles messaged a coworker, and HR called me in just to clarify. Even though I had proof, you could tell they still looked at me differently after that. It took months to clean everything up. I changed my number, moved to a new apartment, made new accounts with fake names just to feel safe online. I still don't post much. I don't trust the internet anymore. Every once in a while, someone will message me saying, "Hey, I think I saw your profile in this app," and my heart sinks all over again. Most of the time, it's not me, and it's not her. But that second of panic always hits first. I haven't spoken to Maya since the day the police called her. I don't plan to. Last I heard, she moved to another state. I don't care where she went. She could be living 3 blocks away or 3 hours. It wouldn't change anything. I still don't understand why she did it. If she wanted revenge, there were easier ways. But what she wanted wasn't just payback, it was control. She wanted to see what I'd do, who'd believe me. She wanted to pull all the strings without being seen. Sometimes late at night, I think about how many people still think those messages were real. How many of them probably read them and thought, "Yeah, that sounds like something he'd say." That's what sticks with me. How believable it all was. I guess that's what happens when someone knows you too well. They don't just know what he'd say, they know what people expect you to say. And once they start playing that version of you, it's almost impossible to prove you're not the one behind it. I learned that too late. I didn't even notice at first. That's the crazy part. You'd think if someone was pretending to be you, you'd catch it right away. But it didn't happen all at once. It started slow, like someone flipping small switches in the background of my life, one at a time until everything felt off. Tyrone and I had known each other since high school. He was one of those friends who's always around, no matter what stage of life you're in. We played basketball together, hung out after class, crashed on each other's couches. After graduation, he stayed in town while I moved away for work. We still talked a lot. When I came back to visit, he'd be the first one to text. It wasn't until I moved back permanently that things started to change. He was going through a rough patch, broke up with his girlfriend, lost his job. I let him crash at my place for a while. He didn't have anywhere else to go, and I figured it'd only be temporary. At first, it was fine. He'd help out around the apartment, buy groceries sometimes, even fix a few things I'd been ignoring. But after a couple months, it started to feel weird. He'd get up early and use my laptop, saying he was applying for jobs. I didn't think much of it. A few weeks later, my mom stopped calling me as often. My sister too. They'd usually text me every few days, but it was like they'd just gone quiet. I figured everyone was busy. Then one day my mom replied to a message I hadn't even sent. She said, "That's not funny." I didn't understand what she meant. I scrolled up, but the only messages I saw were normal. Then she sent a screenshot, an email from me, written in a way that sounded nothing like me. It said something like, "I don't need you checking in on me all the time. I'm not a kid." My stomach dropped. I knew I hadn't written that. I went through my email and found a few sent messages I didn't remember writing. Some were to my family, some to my old friends. They were subtle, not mean, just slightly rude. Enough to sound like I was irritated or ungrateful. Stuff like, "You don't have to worry about me," or "Stop treating me like I can't handle my own life." At first, I thought maybe my account got hacked. I changed my password, turned on extra security, all that. I didn't think of Tyrone right away. Then it kept happening. Emails would go out when I wasn't even home. I'd check my sent folder and see whole threads I'd never seen before. In some, I'd argued with people. In others, I'd apologized for things I didn't even do. It was like someone was scripting an entire fake version of my life. When I confronted Tyrone about it, he looked confused, then acted insulted. He said I was losing it, and that he had just forgotten what I sent. He was calm. Too calm. That kind of calm that makes you question your own memory. A few days later, I caught him on my laptop again while I was in the shower. He jumped up when I walked in, closed the tab, and said he was checking his email. I didn't say anything, just watched him leave the room. When he went out later that night, I opened the laptop and checked the browser history. He'd been logged into my Gmail. I changed my password again, this time for my phone, and logged out all other devices. That should have fixed it. But 2 days later, another email went out from me to my dad. It said, "Stop trying to buy your way into my life." That one hit hard. My dad called immediately, angry and confused. He said if that's how I really felt, I could just say it to his face. I told him I didn't write it, that someone was messing with me, but he didn't believe me. Who would even do that, he asked. I didn't have an answer. Tyrone started acting different around then. He'd make little comments like, "Your family doesn't really get you, man," or "You're better off without all that drama." He talked like he was helping me see the truth. It took me a while to realize he was trying to isolate me. Every time someone pulled away, he'd be there to listen. One night, I stayed up late and saw him sneak into the living room. He didn't know I was awake. I watched him open my laptop again and type something. I crept closer, quiet as I could. He was logged into my email again. I didn't even think. I just yanked the plug out of the wall and grabbed the laptop from him. He froze for a second and started laughing like it was no big deal. He said he was cleaning up my inbox. I told him to get out right then. He didn't argue. He just grabbed his bag and left, still laughing. When he was gone, I read through everything. He'd been replying to people for weeks, friends, family, even coworkers. Some of the emails were long, detailed things about my life that only he would know from living with me. He read stuff like, "Yeah, work's been rough, but I'm managing," or "I don't want to come to dinner." Too many questions. He made it sound like I was pulling away on purpose. The more I scrolled, the worse it got. He even sent emails to my aunt pretending to be me, asking for financial help because I'd supposedly lost my job. She'd sent $200 through a money app. He used my name to do it. I called the bank, reported the account, froze everything I could, but the damage was done. My family was confused, hurt, and didn't know what to believe. They thought maybe I'd lent Tyrone access willingly, or maybe I was trying to cover something up. It didn't matter how many screenshots I sent or how many explanations I gave. It all looked like my words. I went to the police. They said unless I could prove it was him, there wasn't much they could do. I'd need logs, timestamps, or a confession. I had some evidence, but it wasn't enough. For a while, I thought about tracking him down, confronting him again. But honestly, I was too tired. I just wanted it to stop. I got a new laptop, a new email address, everything. I told my family about it and said if they got another message from the old account, to ignore it. I thought that would be the end of it. Then, a few months later, my mom called me. She said she'd gotten another email from my old address. It said, "I see you're still talking to him." I told her to forward it to me. When I read it, I knew it was Tyrone. The tone, the phrasing, it was him all over. He couldn't resist having the last word. That was the last time I heard from him directly. But the fallout lasted a long time. My dad and I didn't talk for almost a year. My sister didn't invite me to her wedding because she thought I'd bring drama. My family thought I was the one pushing them away. It's been 2 years now. I moved cities again, started fresh. Sometimes I still get nervous checking my email, like there's going to be another message from that old account waiting for me. I've deleted it, but I still dream about it sometimes, opening my inbox and seeing someone else writing my life. I think what gets me most is how quiet it all was. Tyrone didn't break anything or scream or threaten me. He just typed. He rewrote my connections, line by line, until no one around me trusted me anymore. That kind of damage doesn't make noise. It just seeps in. I'd heard through a mutual friend that he's working some tech job now. Figures. He was always good with computers. I don't wish him anything, good or bad. I just don't want him anywhere near my life again. Every time I send an email now, I double-check the tone, the spelling, the way it sounds. I look at it like someone might one day use it against me. That's what he left behind. Not fear exactly, but this constant need to make sure I still sound like me. You ever have someone who just refuses to disappear from your life, no matter how many times you try to push them out? That was Jess. She wasn't loud or dramatic about it. She was just there, always there, like a shadow that learned how to text. We met through mutual friends at a concert a few years back. She was fun, chilled, easy to talk to. At first, it felt good being around someone who wasn't trying too hard. We started hanging out more, and eventually we got together. I wouldn't say it was a crazy love story. It was comfortable. Too comfortable, maybe. We'd spend weekends watching movies, ordering takeout, doing normal stuff. She had a way of making ordinary nights feel like routines we'd been doing forever. But over time, that comfort turned into something else. She didn't like when I hung out with other people. She'd text me constantly, asking where I was, who I was with when I'd be back. If I didn't reply quick enough, she'd show up at my place just to check in. I started feeling like I couldn't breathe without her knowing about it. I finally broke it off after one argument too many. Nothing dramatic, just tired. I told her we wanted different things, that I needed space. She cried a lot, said she understood, said she wanted to stay friends. I told her that was fine, but I didn't really mean it. I just didn't want more drama. A few months later, I started seeing someone new, Lena. She was the opposite of Jess. Laid back, funny, not glued to her phone. Things were going great. I hadn't heard from Jess in a while, which felt like a relief. I thought that chapter was closed for good. Then one weekend, Lena mentioned something weird. She said, "You know your ex lives near me, right?" I laughed because that didn't make sense. Jess had lived across town. But Lena said she'd seen her outside the apartment complex across the street, moving boxes with another girl. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. People move. Cities are small. Whatever. But then Jess started showing up in little ways again. I'd run into her at the grocery store near Lena's place. She'd wave, act surprised, like she didn't know I shopped there too. Then I'd see her car parked near Lena's building, not right in front, but close enough to notice. I told myself I was overthinking it. Until one night, Lena and I were watching a movie, and she got a text from an unknown number. It said, "Be careful with him." That's all. No name. Just that. She showed it to me, and we both kind of laughed nervously at first, assuming it was a prank. But the next day, she got another message. He did the same thing to me. Lena asked who it was, but they didn't answer. She blocked the number. A few days later, Jess posted on her social media about how some people move on too fast. I wouldn't have cared, except she tagged the same street Lena lived on in her post. That's when I went over there. Her new apartment was literally across from Lena's building, one floor up, perfect view of the balcony. I remember standing there staring at it, thinking there's no way she didn't plan that. When I knocked, she opened the door like she'd been expecting me. The apartment smelled like fresh paint and lavender candles, and she smiled like everything was normal. "Hey," she said, "small world, right?" I wanted to yell, but instead I just asked why she moved here. She said the rent was good. I didn't believe that for a second. After that, she started appearing everywhere. At the coffee shop Lena liked, at the dog park where we took her puppy. Once, we were out grabbing dinner, and I saw her sitting in her car across the street, pretending to scroll on her phone. I pointed it out. Lena said maybe I was being paranoid. I wanted to agree, but deep down, I knew I wasn't. It got worse. Jess started messaging some of my friends again, asking how I was doing, slipping little questions about Lena into the conversation. Stuff like, is she good for him? Or does he seem happy? Like she was collecting data. Then one night, Lena got home from work and found a note taped to her door. It said, "They'll hurt you like he hurt me." No signature, but we didn't need one. That's when Lena started getting uneasy. She didn't want to admit it, but the whole thing creeped her out. She said maybe it was better if we spent more time at my place. I couldn't blame her. But even that didn't stop Jess. She started parking near my building. Once I caught her sitting in her car at midnight, just parked there with the lights off. I walked up and knocked on the window. She jumped, rolled it down halfway, and said she was just thinking. I told her to leave or I'd call the cops. She just nodded, put the car in reverse, and drove off. The next day, I woke up to a message from a number I didn't know. "I'm not watching you. I just can't stop caring." That one made my skin crawl. I changed my number after that, got new locks, told Lena we might need to be careful for a while. I reported it, The cops said since she hadn't threatened me or broken anything, there wasn't much they could do. Just another case of someone taking a breakup hard. After that, things quieted down a little. She stopped showing up in person, but I'd still see signs of her. A like on an old post. A mutual friend saying she asked about me. A package delivered to Lena's apartment by mistake, addressed to Jessica. Months passed. I started thinking maybe she finally moved on. Then one day, Lena and I were having lunch at her place when she got a knock on the door. It was a delivery guy with flowers, huge bouquet, bright red roses. The note said, "You can do better." No name again. Lena looked at me like she was about to cry. She didn't even have to say it. We both knew. After that, we had one final conversation with Jess. I didn't go in angry this time. I just wanted it over. I asked her straight out if she'd been sending messages and following us. She didn't answer, just smiled and said, "I wasn't following you." I just moved on in the same direction. That was the last time I saw her in person. A few weeks later, I heard from a neighbor that she'd moved out suddenly. No goodbye, no explanation. The apartment was empty overnight. I didn't ask where she went. I didn't want to know. It's been a year since then, and I still catch myself checking parked cars when I visit Lena. Sometimes I'll see someone who looks like her in a crowd and my chest tightens for a second. I've had exes before, but nothing like that. It wasn't about love. It was about control, about refusing to let go. People always talk about dramatic breakups like they're loud and messy, but this one was quiet. Creepy quiet. Like she was rewriting her place in my life one move at a time. Moving across the street wasn't about proximity, it was about presence. She wanted to stay visible, to remind me she still existed. Now, every time I move somewhere new, I make sure to check who lives nearby. I look at the names on mailboxes, the cars in the lot, everything. I'm not paranoid anymore. I'm just cautious. Because if there's one thing Jess taught me, it's that some people don't break up, they relocate. My mom has always believed everything she sees in writing. Doesn't matter who said it. If it's in a text, an email, or a printed note, it's automatically true to her. So when Chris started messaging her behind my back, I didn't stand a chance. Chris and I met at work. We worked in different departments, but everyone went to the same bar after hours, so eventually we started talking. He was funny, sarcastic, and had this kind of quiet charm that made him seem more genuine than most people there. I wasn't even looking for anything, but he just sort of slid into my life without me noticing. At first, things were fine. We got along. We'd hang out after work, talk for hours, cook together on weekends. He didn't seem like the type to cause drama. I thought maybe, for once, I'd found someone normal. But Chris had this habit of keeping tabs on me. If I went somewhere without telling him, he'd make little comments like, "Must have been nice hanging out with your new friends," even though I'd literally just gone grocery shopping. He also hated when I borrowed money from my mom. I never asked for much, just small stuff. Gas, groceries, things like that. But he'd always say, "You're too old to be running to your mom for help." I didn't think he cared that much about it. Turns out he cared a lot. We started fighting more near the end. He didn't like that I wanted space, said I was being distant. I told him I didn't think things were working out, and he flipped. He didn't yell. He just went silent, packed his stuff, and left without saying goodbye. I thought that was the end of it. About 2 weeks later, I texted my mom asking if she could help me cover rent until payday. Usually she'd reply right away, but this time she didn't answer. I called her, and she picked up after a long pause. Her tone was cold. She said, "I can't keep giving you money for gambling." I laughed, thinking she was joking, but she wasn't. She said she read my messages about losing money at the casino, about owning people. I told her I didn't know what she was talking about. She said, "Don't lie to me. Chris already told me everything." That's when it hit me. He'd contacted her. I didn't know how he got her number, but I found out later he'd taken it from my phone while we were still together. He'd been texting her, pretending to be concerned. Said I had a problem, that he caught me gambling online and borrowing from coworkers. He told her he didn't want to embarrass me by bringing it up directly. I tried explaining to her that none of it was true, but she didn't believe me. She said Chris had sent screenshots. I asked her to show me, and she forwarded them. My heart dropped when I saw them. They looked real. My name, my photo, fake messages about betting apps, about losing money, even one that said, "Don't tell Mom, she'll freak." He made it all up. I knew exactly how he did it. There are apps that can fake text threads easily, and he clearly used one. He even made the timestamps match my usual texting pattern. It looked perfect. Too perfect. I called him furious. He didn't answer. I texted him saying, "You're sick." He replied 5 minutes later with, "Just trying to save your mom from disappointment." That was the last message I got from him. After that, my mom stopped helping me. She said she couldn't enable me. I tried everything, screenshots, proof, explanations. Once she saw those fake messages, nothing I said mattered. To her, I was lying. The worst part was how quiet Chris stayed about it. He didn't brag, didn't gloat. He just vanished. That's how I knew he planned it. He didn't want attention. He wanted damage. A few weeks later, my aunt called me out of nowhere. She said she'd heard about my addiction and wanted to make sure I was okay. I hummed up mid-sentence. That's when I realized Chris hadn't just talked to my mom. He talked to my whole family. Apparently, he'd emailed my uncle too, pretending to be concerned about me borrowing from dangerous people. He wrote paragraphs about how I needed help but was too proud to ask. He framed it like he was some selfless ex trying to warn them. My family stopped inviting me to things. No more dinners, no check-ins. Even my cousin, who I grew up with, started treating me like I was one bad decision away from losing everything. I started saving every piece of proof I could. Texts, emails, timestamps, anything that showed I hadn't done what he said. I sent it to my mom in a long email. She didn't reply for a week, which she finally did. All she wrote was, "I hope you get the help you need." I wanted to scream. I almost went to the police, but I didn't know what to even report. He didn't steal money or physically threaten me. He just wrecked my reputation with lies. That kind of damage doesn't fit neatly into a report. It's not illegal to be manipulative. Months passed. I stopped trying to explain. I figured if they wanted to believe him, they could. But it still ate at me. Every time I saw my mom, I could tell she didn't fully trust me anymore. She'd ask how I was managing, like I was recovering from something. Then one night she called crying. She said she'd gotten a text from an unknown number that said, "He's lying to you." Attached was a screenshot of an email Chris had sent to someone else. Apparently, one of his friends had forwarded it. In it, he bragged about teaching me a lesson. Said he always runs to his mommy. Let's see how that goes when she doesn't believe him anymore. That's what finally convinced her. She apologized over and over, but it didn't change how broken things already were. Trust doesn't just snap back into place. I wanted to confront him again, but he changed his number, deleted his social media, disappeared completely. I didn't even know where he worked anymore. It was like he planned an exit. For a long time, I couldn't figure out why he did it. It wasn't about money or revenge in the usual sense. It was about power. He knew how close I was with my mom, how much I relied on her. So he went after that connection. He wanted to cut me off, to prove he could take something from me that I couldn't get back easily. That kind of thing sticks with you. Even now, if someone mentions borrowing money or anything about gambling, my stomach knots up. I start thinking about all the people who still might believe it, people I haven't talked to in years who probably still think I'm some addict who couldn't control himself. I've thought about posting the truth online somewhere, but that feels pointless. The lie spread quietly, privately, through whispers and screenshots. There's no public version to fix. It's been 2 years since then. My mom and I talk again, but it's not the same. There's always that tiny hesitation in her voice when I ask for anything. I don't blame her, but it hurts. Sometimes I read those fake screenshots again, just to remind myself how real they looked. I keep them in a folder called Proof. But honestly, I don't even know what I'm proving anymore. Last I heard, Chris moved to another city. Someone said he was seeing someone new. I almost warned her, but what would I even say? That he once convinced my entire family I was a gambler just for fun. She'd probably think I was crazy. So I let it go. But every time my phone rings and it's my mom, I still wonder if she's calling because she believes me, or because she's read something else about me again. I've always said my dog Milo is the only reason I survived some of the people I've dated. He's a little golden mutt, part something, part everything else, with the kind of face that makes strangers stop in the street just to say hi. I got him after my last breakup before Vanessa, and I swore I'd never let anyone mess with him. Turns out, that was the one promise I couldn't keep. Vanessa came into my life like a storm. I met her at the park, actually, while walking Milo. She was sitting on a bench, drinking iced coffee, and she said something like, "He looks too sweet for a name like Milo." We started talking, exchanged numbers, and she joined us on walks a few times after that. She was easy to be around, funny, a little dramatic, but in that entertaining kind of way. She'd take pictures of Milo and send them to me later with captions like, "My favorite little man." At first, I thought she just really liked dogs. Then I realized she liked control more. We started dating, and she became attached fast. I didn't think much of it because I liked her too, but she started treating Milo like he was hers. She'd say stuff like, "You don't feed him enough," or "He looks sad when you leave for work." She even changed the way I was training him without asking. I'd tell him sit, and she'd say, "No, we use down now," like it was a group project. It was weird, but I brushed it off. I figured she just cared. But it didn't stop there. If Milo barked, she'd say it was because of my energy. If he ignored her, she'd pout and say, "He loves me more, you know." It was constant. I started feeling like a guest in my own dog's life. We dated for about a year. Things got rocky near the end. She hated that I was spending more time at work and less time with her. Every time I left, she'd text me updates about Milo. "He's sleeping by the door waiting for me," or "He didn't eat his food until I got here." She started talking like she was his mom and I was the babysitter. I finally broke it off after one of those endless fights that start over something small and spiral into everything wrong in the world. She cried, begged me to rethink it, said she couldn't imagine her life without Milo. I told her she'd still see him around the park if she wanted, but she just walked out. For a week, everything was quiet. Then one afternoon I came home and Milo was gone. The back door was open, but nothing else was missing. I thought he'd run off somehow. I spent hours searching the neighborhood, calling his name until my voice went hoarse. I posted on every lost dog page I could find. Nothing. Then 2 days later, I saw a post on social media from Vanessa. A picture of Milo. Same collar, same leash, sitting on her couch. The caption said, "Rescued this sweet boy from a neglectful situation. Finally safe." I remember staring at my phone so long my hands started shaking. I called her immediately, but she didn't answer. I left message after message, all ignored. I even went to her apartment, but no one answered the door. She'd stolen him. I called the police, but they said since we'd both taken care of the dog during the relationship, it could be considered a domestic property dispute. They told me to take it to small claims court if I wanted him back. That would take months. Meanwhile, she kept posting photos. Pictures of her in Milo at the park in her car, even at a vet's office with the caption, "Making sure my boy gets proper care this time." It was like she was rewriting reality in front of everyone, painting me as some neglectful owner while showing herself as a hero. My friends were furious. One of them messaged her pretending to congratulate her, and she replied saying I'd left the dog alone all the time, and that she couldn't stand by anymore. She built this entire story around it. People were commenting things like, "Good for you," and "That poor dog's lucky you found him." I tried messaging her calmly, asking to talk, saying I didn't want to fight. I just wanted my dog back. She replied once, "He's happy now. You don't deserve him." That line burned. I started gathering proof, photos of me adopting him, vet records in my name, microchip papers. I even went to the shelter where I got him, and they confirmed everything was registered to me. I sent all of it to the police again, hoping it'd push them to act faster. While waiting, I kept tabs on her posts. It was like she was showing off. She'd film him running in the park, use captions like, "He doesn't flinch anymore," or "Healing takes time." She was getting hundreds of likes. One night, I went to the park myself, hoping maybe she'd show up. Sure enough, after about an hour, I saw her walking him. I called his name, and his head snapped up. He bolted toward me, dragging the leash right out of her hand. He jumped all over me, whining and whining like crazy. Vanessa started screaming at me to let him go. I told her he was my dog, that I had proof. She said she had witnesses who could confirm I didn't take care of him. People were staring, phones out filming. I didn't want to make a scene, so I called animal control right there. They showed up and scanned his microchip. It came back under my name. They told her to hand him over. She refused until they threatened to escort her out of the park. She finally let go of the leash, tears streaming down her face, yelling that I was taking him from his real home. When I got home that night, Milo wouldn't leave my side. He followed me from room to room, like he was scared I'd vanish next. I sat on the floor with him for hours, just letting him calm down. He'd lost weight, his fur was tangled, but he was still my boy. I thought that was the end of it, but Vanessa wasn't done. She started posting again, saying I had stolen him from her. She even reported me to animal services, claiming I abused him. They came to my apartment, inspected everything, and left after 5 minutes, shaking their heads. It was clear she was just trying to keep a story going. After a while, the posts stopped. Her account went private, and she moved out of town. I heard she started fostering dogs after that, which honestly terrified me. It's been over a year now, and Milo's back to his old self. He sleeps on my bed again, chews through socks, acts like nothing ever happened. But every time I take him to the park, I find myself looking around, half expecting to see her face somewhere in the crowd. I learned something about people through that mess. Some just want to hurt you. They want to rewrite the story so they come out looking like the savior. Vanessa didn't steal Milo because she loved him more. She did it because she wanted to prove something, to play the role of the hero in a story where I was the villain. The truth is, she didn't rescue him from me. She rescued him from the version of herself she couldn't stand, someone who couldn't handle being left behind. Milo doesn't know any of that, of course. He just knows he's home. That's enough for him. But for me, every time he curls up next to me, I remember how fast someone can twist love into a weapon, and how close I came to losing the only loyal thing I had left. You ever hear someone say therapy's private, like sacred almost? Yeah, that's what I thought too. Turns out it's only private if the person you're talking about isn't pretending to be you while you're not around. It started the week after me and Nadim broke up. We'd been together almost a year. He was one of those guys who seemed chill on the outside, but had this quiet, controlling streak that showed up once he got comfortable. Always wanted to know what I was doing, who I was talking to, what I was thinking. He said he was just protective. I called it caring back then. Now I know better. We met through mutual friends at a birthday dinner. He was funny, charming, asked a million questions about me in a way that made me feel seen. Within a few weeks, we were together. The first few months were fine. He'd show up to my place with food, talk about future plans. He even mentioned marriage like he was half joking but half serious. It moved fast, but I didn't mind. He seemed real. The control part started slow. He'd correct me in small ways, like if I told the story slightly wrong, he'd jump in to fix it. If I was quiet, he'd say I was hiding something. If I disagreed, he'd act like I was being dramatic. It was death by 1,000 little comments. I started therapy partly because of him. I needed a place to untangle everything I felt. I told him that too, stupidly thinking it'd make him understand me better. Instead, he got obsessed with it. He wanted to know what I talked about every session. What did you say about me? He'd ask, half joking but watching me closely. I'd tell him it wasn't about him, but he never believed that. After one bad fight, I decided I was done. I told him we needed to take a break, maybe end things for good. He didn't yell or beg. He just said, "Do what you need to do," and left. I thought that was surprisingly mature of him. It wasn't. 2 weeks later, I walked into therapy, and my therapist looked uneasy. I didn't think much of it until she said, "I just want to make sure you're comfortable with your emergency contact checking in." I froze. "What do you mean?" I asked. She said, "He's been calling and visiting to get updates on your progress. Said you gave permission." My blood ran cold. She said his name, Nadim. I couldn't even speak. He'd called pretending to be my emergency contact. I had listed him months ago back when we were still together, just in case something ever happened. I didn't think it meant anything beyond that, but apparently he'd taken that as an open door. He told her I'd had a mental breakdown and said he was worried I'd hurt myself. Said he wanted to make sure I was safe. She believed him. She didn't tell him everything, obviously, but she'd been letting him stop by after sessions to check in. He even sat in the waiting room a few times. I felt sick. She apologized once she realized what had happened, said she'd update her files immediately, said it wouldn't happen again. But I couldn't stop thinking about how long he'd been doing it, how much he'd learned just by listening or watching. That night, I checked my phone and saw a message from him. "Glad therapy's helping," it said. No emojis, just that. He knew. I blocked him right away, but then he started showing up places I didn't expect. outside my building, near my gym, even once outside the therapist's office. He'd just lean against his car, pretending to be on his phone. I never saw him go inside again, but he wanted me to see him. That was the point. I told my therapist, and she helped me file a report for harassment. She even called the police once when he refused to leave the parking lot. They gave him a warning, but that only made him smarter. He stopped showing up in person and started emailing instead. He'd send messages from fake accounts with subject lines like, "checking on your progress," or "you still lying about me in there." I'd delete them, but they kept coming. Once he sent a long one where he read my words back to me, things I'd said in therapy, private things. I realized then that he must have heard something somehow. I didn't know how until one night I was cleaning out my bag and found a tiny black device tucked inside a pocket. A recorder. He'd slipped it in sometime before we broke up. I read it on my laptop, and there were recordings from multiple sessions. My voice, my therapist's voice, even the sound of pages flipping when I'd take notes. I felt like throwing up. He'd been recording me for weeks before we broke up. I had no idea how much he'd heard or what he'd done with it. I brought the recorder to the police again. This time they took it seriously. They said it qualified as illegal surveillance. They questioned him, and after that, the messages stopped. No more emails, no more random sightings. It was like he disappeared overnight. But the damage was already done. Therapy stopped feeling safe after that. I switched therapists twice, tried virtual sessions, even took a break altogether because I couldn't talk without wondering who was listening. Every time I opened up about something personal, I'd picture him hearing it, twisting it, using it somehow. I eventually found out through a mutual friend that he bragged about it. Said he just wanted to know the truth. Said I'd lied about him to make myself look better. He claimed he was only fact-checking. That's what he told people, fact-checking, like I was a story he needed to edit. The friend who told me all that said he'd moved out of state not long after the police talked to him. Started working somewhere new, got a new girlfriend. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or terrified for her. Probably both. It's been over a year now. I'm back in therapy with a new doctor and a lot more caution. My emergency contact is now my cousin. My phone stays in my bag during sessions, zipped up. I check it afterward every single time. I still get the occasional anonymous email that feels too personal, too pointed, but I don't open them anymore. I just delete them. I don't even want to know if it's him. Sometimes I think about how easy it was for him to get inside my head without even being there. All it took was pretending to care. That's the part that messes with me, the way he used my own healing process against me. Therapy was supposed to be the one place he couldn't reach. He turned it into another room he controlled. People say breakups show you who someone really is. I think that's wrong. Breakups show you how far someone will go when they realize they can't control you anymore. Nadim didn't want me back. He just wanted to know I was still thinking about him. That's what the recordings were for. Proof that I couldn't move on without mentioning his name. Now I barely say it out loud. He's a ghost in my story and nothing more. But every time I close my eyes in therapy, I still picture that little black recorder sitting in my bag, quietly capturing every word. If you've ever worked in an office where gossip spreads faster than emails, then you'll understand exactly how fast Kira wrecked my life. One morning I walked into work, and by lunch people were avoiding me like I was radioactive. Nobody said anything to my face at first. They just kept their distance, whispered when I walked past, left empty seats beside me in the break room. I thought maybe I'd spilled something on myself or smelled weird or whatever. It wasn't that simple. By the end of the day, my coworker, Lee, finally told me what was going on. She pulled me aside in the hallway and said, "People are saying you have something contagious." I laughed because it sounded so ridiculous. She didn't. She said, "Kara told people she found out you're sick." My brain froze for a second. Sick? With what? She said Kara told everyone I had something serious. She didn't name it at first, but apparently she'd been dropping hints all week, saying things like, "Don't drink after him," and "I hope he's getting treatment." By the time I found out, half the office already had their own version of the story. I felt like I was in some messed up rumor war and didn't even know it had started. Kira and I used to date. She worked in the same company, different department, and that's how we met. At first, we kept it quiet, then people started noticing. It wasn't a huge deal. We went out, had fun, and it was easy until it wasn't. Kira was the kind of person who always had to be the center of attention. Every story, every joke, Every event somehow came back to her. If something wasn't about her, she found a way to make it about her. I didn't mind it too much in the beginning. It was kind of charming, in a chaotic way. But after a while, it got tiring. Everything turned into a test. If I didn't text back fast enough, it was because I didn't care. If I talked to another woman, even just a coworker, it meant I was disrespecting her. When I finally ended it, she acted calm about it. She said, "That's fine. I knew you'd get bored eventually." Then she smiled like she'd already planned her revenge. I should have known. The rumor didn't stop with coworkers. It started leaking outside of work, too. A friend from another department texted me saying someone had told her I had an infectious condition. She didn't even want to say the word. I found out later Kiara had told a few people I had an STD. She said she felt bad for the girl I was dating now. It spread like wildfire. I went from being just another guy at the office to being the person nobody wanted to share space with. People who used to hang out with me at lunch suddenly had other plans. Even when they didn't believe it completely, they didn't want to risk being seen as too close. That's the thing about rumors like that. It doesn't matter what's true. All it takes is one whisper and people start pulling away to protect themselves. I confronted her once, right after I found out. I didn't yell. I just asked why she'd do something like that. She rolled her eyes and said, "I didn't say anything specific. People assume things." She said it like she was proud of how clever she'd been. Then she added, "Maybe now you'll understand what it feels like to be avoided." That line stuck with me. I tried to go through HR about it, but she was smart. She never said anything directly in messages. She always said it in person, or she'd make it sound like concern, like she was worried about me. HR said unless I had a proof, there wasn't much they could do. I could tell they didn't want to get involved. It got so bad I started avoiding people myself. I'd eat lunch in my car, leave right at 5, keep my head down. My work started slipping because I couldn't focus. I'd walk past people whispering, and even if they weren't talking about me, my brain said they were. The worst part was how it boiled into my personal life. My mom called one night and asked if I was okay. Someone had messaged her on social media from a fake account saying I was seriously ill. I knew exactly who did it, but again, no proof. A few days later, my new girlfriend got a message from another fake profile. It said, "You should get tested." That's when I realized Kiara wasn't just trying to humiliate me. She was trying to isolate me completely. I talked to a lawyer who specialized in workplace defamation. He said technically, if I could prove it damaged my reputation or career, I could sue. But proving it meant getting witnesses to admit what they heard and from who. Most people didn't want to get involved. They were scared of picking sides. So I started collecting what I could, screenshots of vague posts, messages, anything that hinted at the rumor. One day, I got my break. A coworker accidentally sent me a screenshot of a group chat where Kira was laughing about it. She said, "I can't believe people actually think it's true." Someone replied, "You literally told them it was." She sent a laughing emoji. That was enough. I took it straight to HR. I printed it out, gave them the whole timeline, and said if they didn't handle it, I'd go public. That finally got their attention. They called her the next day. She denied everything at first, but when they showed her the screenshots, she started crying, said she didn't mean for it to get this far. She said it was just a joke. I don't know what they said to her after that, but by the end of the week, she was gone. Quit. Transferred. Fired. I didn't ask which. You'd think that would fix things, but rumors are like stains. Even when they fade, you still see the outline. People eventually stopped treating me like a walking hazard, but there was always that small pause when someone new met me through work, like they'd heard something once but couldn't remember what. I stayed at that job for another year before I moved to another city. I didn't even tell people where I was going. I just left. It's been a while now, but it still gets under my skin. Not the rumor itself. I know who I am, but the way people reacted. Nobody asked me directly. Nobody said, "Hey, I heard something, is it true?" They just distanced themselves quietly. It's wild how fast people's instincts turn from sympathy to suspicion. Every time someone brings up office gossip now, I shut it down immediately. I can't stand that stuff. I've seen firsthand how a lie, even one said as a joke, can ruin someone's sense of safety. I still see Kiara sometimes on social media through mutual friends. She's moved on, new city, new job, posting quotes about forgiveness and growth. It makes me sick, but I scroll past. I'm not wasting another second thinking about someone who turned me into a rumor. If there's one thing I learned, It's that you can't outrun lies. You just outlast them. Eventually, the truth sticks around longer than the gossip. But the damage, that stays with you. And now, every time I walk into a new job, I can't help but notice who looks at me a second too long. Just making sure, I guess. Making sure I don't look contagious. You know that feeling when your phone rings and you already know it's bad news before you even answer? That was my life for about 2 months thanks to Jake. Every day, same thing. Unknown number, local area code, sometimes multiple in a row. And every time I pick up, it was another restaurant asking about my massive takeout order that didn't exist. It started one random Tuesday. I got a call from this pizza place I used to order from, asking if I still wanted the 20 large order I placed for a corporate lunch. I told them they had the wrong guy, and the guy on the phone laughed and said, "You're sure? It's under your name, same number, same address." I thought maybe it was some computer mix-up. Mistakes happen. Then it happened again the next day, but this time it was a sushi restaurant. Same deal, huge order, over $100, my name and number attached. When I said I hadn't ordered anything, they sounded annoyed, like I was wasting their time. I started realizing this wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. That's when I thought of Jake. He and I had dated for a little over a year. It ended ugly. Not screaming, not cheating, the worse. The quiet kind of breakup where one person keeps talking like everything's fine while the other one's already halfway out the door emotionally. That was me leaving. He didn't take it well. He'd always been controlling about small stuff. Like if I wanted to eat somewhere he didn't like, he'd act personally offended. If I hung out with friends, he'd text nonstop, asking where we were, what we were eating, how long I'd be gone. It wasn't obvious at first, just little things that built up over time. When I finally ended it, he didn't yell. He just smiled this weird tight smile and said, "You'll regret this." It didn't sound like a threat, more like a promise he'd made to himself. About a week after that, the calls started. At first, I didn't connect the dots. I figured it was spam or some mix-up with my number being reused in the system somewhere. But it kept escalating. Italian restaurants, burger places, Indian spots, even bakeries. Every call had my name attached. Some had my old address. Others had my work address. One even had my mom's. Then the cancellations started. Restaurants I'd never been to before would call and tell me I was banned from ordering. They said I'd wasted their time or stiffed the delivery driver. I tried explaining it wasn't me, but most didn't care. I could hear the exhaustion in their voices. They just wanted to move on. By the second week, I couldn't answer my phone without getting a new complaint. Some restaurants even posted on local community pages saying someone named Jake or my name had been placing huge fake orders. I saw the posts and wanted to crawl out of my skin. People were commenting things like, "What kind of loser does that?" And imagine being that petty. I finally called one of the restaurants and asked for details about the last fake order. The woman said it came in through a phone call, not online, and whoever placed it gave my name and phone number, and said the phrase "put it on my tab." I didn't even know restaurants still did that. I hung up and it hit me. Jake had that voice. That steady, charming voice that people automatically trusted. He could easily pull this off. I blocked his number just in case, but that didn't stop him. The orders kept coming from different restaurants across town. Once, I even got a call from a catering service confirming a $400 event booking. They said it was for a family reunion. When I told them it was fake, they said, "That's strange, he mentioned your name specifically." That he slipped out before they realized it. I knew it was him then. I called him from a new number. He answered on the second ring, sounding way too casual. I asked why he was doing it. He said, "Doing what?" I told him to stop. He laughed. Not loud, just enough to make my skin crawl. Then he said, "You wanted space. Now you got all the space in the world. Nobody in this city wants to deal with you anymore." Then he hung up. After that, I went to the police. I explained everything, showed them the call logs, even had one of the restaurant owners willing to confirm the voice matched the description I gave. But the officer basically said, unless I had recordings or monetary loss, there wasn't much they could do. It was harassment, but not the kind they could charge easily. So I started gathering proof. I kept a lot of every call, every restaurant name, every date and time. I started recording the calls when I could. One night, I got lucky. A diner manager called about a $200 fake order and said the guy on the phone had called himself Jake. I saved that voicemail and added it to the list. Eventually, I took everything to a lawyer. They said I could potentially get a restraining order if I could show a pattern of targeted harassment. It took weeks, but I finally filed. When the court papers got served, the calls stopped overnight. I thought it was over. But then, 2 weeks later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a printed list of restaurants with my name next to fake order amounts. Written at the bottom in pen, this was just round one. I took it straight to the police again. They said since it didn't include direct threats, they'd just keep it on record. After that, I started noticing smaller things. Flyers under my windshield wipers advertising catering services. My name scribbled in pen across the top. Sometimes the paper would have grease marks, like it came straight from a restaurant kitchen. I'd toss them, but each one made my heart race. I changed my phone number, deleted my social media, even moved to a new apartment across town. For a few months, everything was quiet. Then one day, out of nowhere, I got an email from a restaurant chain saying, "We confirmed your catering cancellation. Refunds will take 5 to 7 business days." I hadn't ordered anything. It didn't even surprise me. I just stared at it for a while, then deleted it. I was too tired to fight anymore. That's what he wanted, I think. Not to ruin my finances or reputation permanently, but to exhaust me. To make me flinch every time my phone rang. To make me afraid of answering calls from strangers. He wanted to turn normal life into work. It's been over a year now. I still hesitate to give my name when ordering food. I use initials, sometimes fake names. My friends joke that I act like I'm in witness protection, but they don't get it. You can't explain what it feels like to have something as harmless as your favorite restaurant turn against you because of someone who can't let go. Last I heard, Jake moved out of the city. Someone said he's working in a call center now. I didn't even know how to feel about that. Of course he is. It fits him too well. Every now and then, when I see an unknown number flash across my screen, I freeze for half a second, just to be sure. Then I let it ring. I don't answer anymore. Because if it's him, I'm not giving him that satisfaction again. It's weird how something as simple as an envelope can ruin your life. There's this moment when you see your name written on the front, and you automatically assume it's harmless. Maybe a bill, maybe junk mail, maybe a card. You don't expect it to be the start of a disaster. You don't expect your ex to start sending out apology letters to people from your past, pretending to be you. When the first one showed up, I didn't even know about it. It went to an ex-girlfriend of mine from college named Sarah. We hadn't talked in years. Then one night, she messaged me out of nowhere. No hello, no small talk. Just what's your problem? I stared at it for a while, confused. I typed back, asking what she meant. She sent a photo, a handwritten letter on lined paper addressed to her, signed with my name. The handwriting looked almost identical to mine. Same looping ace, same slanted lines. The letter said stuff like, "I still think about what we had, and I regret the way things ended." Then it got darker. It said, "I lied to you back then, and you deserved better." I'd never written it. At first, I thought it was some mix-up or maybe even a prank, but then I saw another one. This time from someone else I dated years before, someone I hadn't spoken to in forever. He posted a picture of his letter online, calling me pathetic for confessing to cheating that never happened. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. The handwriting again looked like mine, but not perfect, too forced, like someone had practiced it. That's when I realized exactly who would do something like that. Tina. We dated for almost a year. She was creative, always into weird art projects, photography, crafts. She loved making things by hand. She copied drawings, learned people's signatures, even mimic fonts. She used to joke that she could forge anyone's handwriting if she wanted to. I thought it was funny then. Now it just made me sick. Our relationship had been a roller coaster. She was passionate, funny, spontaneous, but also manipulative. Every time I tried to leave, she'd do something dramatic to pull me back. One time she pretended to faint during an argument. Another time she threatened to post private messages unless I met her in person to talk things out. I should have known I was a preview of what was coming. When I finally broke up with her, I blocked her on everything. No contact, no closure, nothing. I just needed peace, and for a while, I actually got it. Then the letters started. Apparently, Tina had gone through my old social media and written down the names of everyone I'd ever dated, even people I'd only talked to briefly. She started mailing them letters from me, handwritten and personal. Every single one confessed to something awful: cheating, lying, manipulating, ghosting. None of it true. Some of them even apologized for things that never happened. Stuff like, "I'm sorry I made you feel unsafe," or "I shouldn't have taken your money." It was smart in a twisted way because it sounded believable. Everyone's got that one ex they assume secretly regrets everything. The worst part was, some of the letters sounded like things I might actually say. That's what made it so hard to deny. When people showed me pictures, I'd see little phrases or habits that were exactly mine, like how I write anyways with an S or sign my name with a long dash under it. She'd mimicked me perfectly. I didn't even know how many she'd sent until more people started reaching out. Some were angry. Some were awkwardly nice, saying they appreciated the honesty. One person even forgave me for something I never did. Imagine that, being forgiven for crimes that never existed. I finally got proof when one of my friends messaged me saying they saw Tina at the post office with a stack of envelopes. She'd been mailing them for weeks. I went straight to the police, but they said unless there were threats or money involved, it was a civil issue. Basically, they couldn't do anything. So I started tracking it myself. I made a list of everyone who'd gotten the letter, asked them to forward photos or bring them to me. By the time I was done, I had 12 in total. 12 fake letters, all mailed out over 3 weeks, all written in my fake handwriting. Each one told a slightly different story. Some made me sound like a jerk, others like a broken person trying to make amends. But they all had one thing in common. They made me look weak, guilty, pathetic, like I was obsessed with my past. I sent her one text. Just one. I said, "I know about the letters." She didn't deny it. She just replied, "Now they know who you really are." After that, she went silent again. The fallout was worse than I expected. Old flames started messaging me, confused or angry. People at work even heard about it because one of the letters somehow got shared online. My boss pulled me aside and said maybe I should take some time to deal with things. I didn't even know how to explain what things meant. One day, a stranger even came up to me outside a coffee shop and said, "You're the guy who writes apology letters, right?" I just walked away. I thought about trying to clear my name publicly, but what would I say? My ex forged my handwriting and mailed fake confessions to my old partners. Nobody would believe that without seeing it themselves. So I just waited for it to fade. It took months. People eventually got bored, and new gossip replaced the old. But I never really got over it. A few months later, one of the people who'd gotten the letter reached out again. He said he'd gotten another one, but this time it wasn't from me. It was from Tina. She'd mailed him an update saying I'd learned nothing, and that I was still lying to everyone. That's when I realized she wasn't done. She was just shifting her narrative. I went back to the police again, this time with a stack of evidence. Handwriting comparisons, photos, timelines, everything. It finally caught their attention. They called her in for questioning. She didn't get arrested, but she got warned officially about harassment and defamation. After that, it stopped. No more letters, no more posts, just silence. Still, the damage stuck around. A couple people never believed me completely. To them, I'll always be the person who wrote those letters. The person who confessed to things I didn't do. And there's nothing I can say to change that. Sometimes I still get nervous when I see a letter in my mailbox. It doesn't matter if it's a bill or junk mail. My stomach still twists until I open it. I always half expect to see someone else's name on the front or my own handwriting that I didn't write. I moved last year, partly to get away from that whole mess. New address, new job, new people. I keep my personal life quiet now. No more posting about relationships. No more lists of names someone could dig up later. Every once in a while, though, I'll find an old photo of Tina in my camera roll. She's always smiling, holding a coffee, acting harmless. You never think someone like that could wreck your life with nothing but pen and paper. That's what makes it so scary. She didn't hack me, didn't threaten me, didn't touch me. She just rewrote my story and mailed it to everyone who mattered. Now, when people ask me why I don't keep in touch with exes, I just say, it's safer that way. I don't explain. I don't tell them about the envelopes or the forged handwriting or the fact that for months people believed I was someone I wasn't. I just keep it simple, because sometimes the truth sounds crazier than the lie. I never thought I'd have to move twice just to get away from somebody who couldn't take a breakup. You think when someone says, let's end this, it's done. You both go your own ways. Maybe there's some awkward small talk if you bump into each other later, and that's it. But Ben didn't do endings. He just did relocations. When we broke up, it wasn't explosive or dramatic. More like slow death. We'd been dating almost 2 years, and everything felt tired. Same arguments, same cold silences. I wanted space, he wanted control. We lived together for 6 months, and it felt like being roommates with a ghost who still thought he owned the place. I remember packing my boxes while he sat on the couch pretending not to notice. When I finally left, I didn't even look back. The new apartment was perfect, tiny, cheap, and quiet. I finally started feeling normal again. I was meeting new people, getting back into a routine, starting to feel like my life was mine again. Ben still texted sometimes, short stuff like "you left your hoodie" or "hope you're good." I ignored most of it. After a while, he stopped. Or at least I thought he did. About 2 months later, I was coming home from work when I noticed a familiar car parked outside my building. Same make, same dent on the back bumper. I stood there for a minute, thinking it couldn't be. But then I saw him, Ben sitting in the driver's seat, scrolling through his phone. He didn't see me, or maybe he pretended not to. Either way, I turned around and went to a coffee shop until he was gone. The next day, I saw him again. Different spot, same car. This time I walked right up and asked what he was doing there. He smiled that it was no big deal and said, "Oh, I moved in." I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. He rented an apartment in my building, the same building I'd moved to after leaving him. I didn't even know how he found the address. I never posted it, never told him, never mentioned the neighborhood. He must have gone through my stuff before I left or tracked me some other way. When I asked him why, he shrugged. "It's a free country," he said. Then he walked past me, holding grocery bags like he belonged there. The next few weeks were hell. He didn't harass me directly. He didn't need to. Just existing in the same building was enough. I'd see him in the hallway when I went to get the mail. He waved casually, say, "Morning," like we were still together. He started parking next to me every day, even though there were plenty of other spaces. Once, he even helped one of my neighbors carry furniture up the stairs, introducing himself as my boyfriend. She told me later she thought we were still together. That's when it hit me. He was doing it on purpose. Not to talk to me, but to rewrite the story, to make it look like nothing had ever ended. I told my landlord about it, but he said there wasn't much he could do. He pays rent like everyone else, he said. I wanted to scream. It got worse. Ben started chatting with everyone in the building, neighbors, maintenance staff, even the mailman. He was friendly, charming, helpful. Everyone loved him. So when I started acting cold toward him, I looked like the jerk. Once, when I got into the elevator and saw him there, I stepped out and took the stairs instead. The next day, someone joked, "You two having a lover's quarrel?" He made everyone think we were still together. Then came the mail. I started getting letters addressed to both of us. Not bills, personal stuff. Holiday cards from mutual friends who didn't realize we'd split. I asked one of them how they got the new address, and she said, "Ben gave it to me." It wasn't just creepy anymore, it was invasive. I confronted him again. He didn't even flinch. He just said, "We're neighbors now. Might as well make it work." After that, he started getting bold, leaving small things at my door, a coffee, a note that said, "Saw this and thought of you." Even once a framed photo of us from when we were together. I threw it away. The next day, it was back outside my door again. I started documenting everything, dates, photos, screenshots. I figured I'd need proof eventually. One night, I was coming back from a friend's place and saw lights on in my apartment. I froze. I knew I'd turn everything off before leaving. I opened the door and found Ben sitting on the couch, watching TV like nothing was wrong. He had a key. I lost it. I screamed at him to get out. He said he found the spare key I'd kept under the mat. I told him that wasn't possible because I'd moved it months ago. He just smiled and said, "Guess you're not as careful as you think." I called the cops. They made him leave, but since he hadn't broken in or stolen anything, they said there wasn't much else they could do. I changed my locks the next morning. But that didn't stop him. He started telling people we were working things out. When I tried to correct them, they looked confused, like I was lying. He'd already gotten to them first. He'd tell them little details about my life, stuff only someone close would know, so it sounded real. "She's been stressed from work," he'd say, or "we're keeping things low-key this time." I couldn't take it anymore. I packed everything up again and found a new place across town. I didn't tell anyone where. I didn't even forward my mail. I just left. A week after moving, I got a message from a friend saying, "Ben says you guys just moved to a bigger place together." I felt sick. He'd already found a way to twist it again. For months, I looked over my shoulder everywhere I went. I blocked him, changed my number, deleted all my social media. I even considered changing jobs just in case he figured out where I worked. For a while, it was quiet. No messages, no sightings. I thought maybe he finally let go. Then one day, a new tenant in my old building messaged me online. She said, "Hey, weird question. Did you used to live here with a guy named Ben?" I said, "Yeah." "Why?" She said, "He told me you two used to be together and that you might come by sometimes." He'd moved into my old apartment. It felt like a punch in the stomach. He'd moved into the same unit I'd once lived in, the same place I'd tried to start over after him. He was living in my old space, telling my old neighbors the same story again, that we were still together, that I'd be around. I called the landlord, furious. He said Ben signed the lease fair and square. There was nothing illegal about it. I hung up and sat there for hours, thinking about how I'd just moved across the city to escape someone who was still living in the shell of my old life, still rewriting my story. I thought about all the little things he'd done, how he mirrored every move I made, how he always managed to stay one step behind, close enough to haunt me but never close enough to stop. It's been over a year now. I haven't heard from him, but I still get random follow requests from people who live in that building. Every time I wonder if he told them about me, if he's still pretending we're together, if my name still comes up in that hallway where I used to walk every day. Sometimes I dream about that apartment. Not the new one, the old one. I dream I'm walking through it, but everything's changed. My furniture's gone, replaced by his. My pictures are off the wall. It's like he's still there waiting, living a version of our life that only exists in his head. I don't think about it much anymore, but sometimes when I pass an apartment building that looks like that old one, I still feel my chest tighten. Because the truth is, moving out doesn't always mean moving on. If you've ever texted the wrong person something embarrassing, you know that punch to the gut feeling that hits right after you press send. Now imagine that happening over and over, except it's not an accident. It's someone doing it on purpose. That was my life for about 3 weeks, all thanks to Kara. Kara was one of those people who made chaos look charming. She got a laugh that filled a room, never showed up anywhere on time, and somehow made every situation about 10 times louder than it needed to be. When we met, that energy was fun. I liked how unpredictable she was. It felt exciting, like anything could happen. I didn't realize that anything would later include her stealing my phone and reprogramming my entire contact list just to make me look like a cheating idiot. We dated for almost a year. It wasn't bad at first, just intense. Kara was the kind of girlfriend who wanted to be part of everything I did. If I was hanging out with friends, she'd show up. If I didn't answer her text fast enough, she'd FaceTime me. At first, I thought that kind of attention meant she really cared. Then I started noticing little things, like how she'd look through my notifications when I left my phone on the counter, or how she'd question me about every name she didn't recognize. One night, I was talking to my coworker Julia about a project over text. It was purely work stuff. Deadlines, tasks, nothing even slightly flirty. Kara saw the message pop up on my screen and went ballistic. She grabbed my phone, demanded I unlock it, then scrolled through every conversation I had. I didn't argue because I didn't want to make it worse. After that, she called Netta for a bit, or pretended to. When we finally broke up, she made it sound peaceful. Said she understood, said she needed to focus on herself. I believed her. I should have known better. 2 days later, my phone started acting weird. At first, I thought it was some update glitch. I'd get random texts from people that didn't make sense. Stuff like wrong person, or dude, what are you talking about? Then one night, I accidentally sent my mom a text that said, "I can't stop thinking about last night." I had no clue how it happened. I checked my sent messages, and sure enough, it went to her. I wanted to dig a hole and disappear. I double-checked who I meant to text. It was my friend Leo. We'd been planning to watch a game. So how did my mom's name show up instead of his? That's when I started noticing more. My boss's number was saved under my friend's name. My ex-coworker's name was under my cousin's number. It was all scrambled. It took me an hour to figure out what happened. Kara had switched my contact names around. I felt sick. She must have done it when she took my phone during that fight, or maybe she memorized my passcode. Either way, she'd gone through and changed dozens of contacts, friends, family, coworkers, even old numbers I hadn't used in months, and she didn't do it randomly. She did it with precision. She swapped names in ways that would cause maximum chaos. My best friend's number became my ex's. My mom's became my boss's. My bosses became my friend Leo's. Every text I sent went to the wrong person. Every call reached someone else entirely. I tried to fix it manually, but I didn't even know who half the numbers belonged to anymore. I started texting people things like, "Who is this?" and getting angry replies like, "You know who this is, stop playing around." Then the screenshots started. Kara posted them online. She'd taken screenshots of my messages before switching the names. So when I texted my friend something innocent like, "You still coming over later?" it looked like I was texting someone else, like I was juggling multiple people. She captioned them with stuff like, "He hasn't changed." I tried to explain, but it just made me look guilty. People believed her because she had proof. Screenshots don't lie, right? I called her furious. She didn't answer. Then I got a text from an unknown number that said, "You should double check who you're talking to next time." That's when I knew she wasn't just doing it to embarrass me. She wanted me to lose control. She wanted to make me paranoid. And it worked. I started second-guessing every text, every call. I stopped messaging people altogether. If I needed to say something, I called just to make sure it was really them. My friends thought I was losing it. I couldn't even explain what was going on because saying my ex hacked my contacts sounded like a bad excuse. Eventually, I took my phone to a repair shop. The guy there took one look and said my contact list had been exported, edited, and re-uploaded through a backup file. Basically, she'd synced my phone to hers, changed everything, then restored it. It wasn't even that hard to do. He helped me reset everything, but by then the damage was done. I'd already sent dozens of messages to the wrong people. My mom thought I was going through a breakdown. My boss thought I was unprofessional. My friends thought I was playing some kind of weird joke. And Kara, she acted like she didn't even know what I was talking about. When one of our mutual friends confronted her, she laughed and said, "He's just mad," and moved on. I blocked her everywhere. Changed my passwords, got a new phone, new number, everything. But somehow, even after that, it wasn't over. A few weeks later, I started getting random texts from numbers I didn't recognize. People saying stuff like, "Hey, I heard what you did to Kara," or "You should be ashamed." She'd apparently sent messages to people using my old number before I changed it, pretending to be me. Apologizing, begging, even flirting. It took months to undo it all. I had to contact people one by one, explain what really happened, and show proof. Some believed me. Some didn't. The part that messed with me the most wasn't even the rumors. It was how easily she did it. How fast she turned something as simple as a phone into a weapon. It made me realize how fragile trust really is. There's this specific kind of quiet that comes after that kind of chaos. The kind where you stop trusting technology altogether. I started writing things down on paper again. Phone numbers, notes, reminders, just so nobody could mess with them. I backed everything up to an external drive I keep offline. Overkill maybe, but I couldn't shake the paranoia. Sometimes I still dream about those wrong texts. In the dream, I'm typing something simple. "Hey, how are you?" And then I hit send, and it goes to everyone at once. All my contacts all at once, and I wake up sweating. Kara still lives in the same city, I think. I see her name pop up sometimes in mutual friends' stories, usually smiling, surrounded by people who don't know what she's capable of. I've thought about warning them, but I don't. They wouldn't believe me until it's too late. It's strange how much damage one person can do without ever touching you. She never yelled, never broke anything, never even came to my place again. She just used a few taps on a screen and wrecked my reputation, my friendships, and my peace of mind. Now when someone asks for my number, I hesitate. When someone borrows my phone, I feel this instant tension, like I'm handing over something dangerous. I know I'm not the same person I was before her. I used to be careless. I used to think small lies didn't matter, small control didn't mean anything. But Kara showed me how far small can go when someone wants to twist it. And every time I go through my contact list now, I still pause for a second, making sure everyone's where they should be. Making sure I'm still talking to the right people. Because once someone messes with that, you start doubting everything, including yourself. You never really think about how easy it is for someone to steal your identity until it happens to you in a way that doesn't even make sense. I wasn't rich. I wasn't famous. I wasn't even online that much. But somehow Dylan decided to turn me into a charity case and then keep the profits. I found out about it on a Sunday morning. My cousin texted me a link that said, "Hope he's okay." I clicked it and saw my own face staring back at me on a GoFundMe page. The title said, "Help Dylan's boyfriend recover from his medical emergency." At first, I thought it was some kind of joke, but the more I scrolled, the worse it got. There was a long description about how I'd been in a terrible accident, how I was recovering from severe injuries, and how Dylan was doing everything he could but needed help covering expenses. It was written in this emotional tone, full of fake details, hospital visits, surgeries, lost wages. None of it was true. He even included pictures of me from our old vacations together, cropped to look like I was in a hospital bed. The goal was $10,000. The progress bar showed $7,400 already raised. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Me and Dylan had dated for about a year and a half. He was one of those guys who could talk his way into anything. Charismatic, funny, quick with compliments. Everyone liked him, even when he was lying through his teeth. I didn't notice the lying at first, but eventually it became obvious. Small things like pretending to have connections he didn't, or telling people stories that didn't match what I knew about him. He always had an excuse ready. When I finally broke things off, he said he understood. He even cried a little, said he wished me the best. I thought maybe, for once, someone was actually going to walk away peacefully. Guess not. After I saw the GoFundMe, I called him immediately. No answer. I texted him, "What the hell is this?" He replied with one line, "Don't overreact." That's when I knew he didn't just make it as a prank. He was serious. Within hours, more people started reaching out. Family, coworkers, even an old teacher. Everyone thought I was dying. My aunt said she donated $200 and shared the post on Facebook. My boss emailed me saying to take as much time off as I needed to recover. It was insane. I tried reporting the GoFundMe, but the process took days. They asked for proof that I was the person being impersonated, which I sent, but while I waited, donations kept pouring in. Dylan had set up withdrawal info to go directly to his account. Then came the comments. People wrote stuff like, "Stay strong, praying for you, you're lucky to have someone like Dylan." Every word made me want to scream. I finally showed up at his apartment. He opened the door smiling, like nothing was wrong. I asked why he did it. He said, "You didn't seem like you were doing great, so I figured I'd make something positive out of it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He said he was just trying to raise money for himself too, because he'd lost hours at work and was struggling emotionally. He actually said it was a mutual benefit. I told him he was insane, that I had already reported the campaign. He just shrugged and said, "Then I'll take it down when it hits the goal." I left before I did something I regret. 2 days later, the GoFundMe was gone. I thought maybe the report worked. Then I got another message from someone saying, "Glad you're okay now. I donated to the other one too." The other one? I searched my name again. There it was. A new GoFundMe. This time the story said I was in and out of treatment, that I'd relapsed and needed ongoing support. Different photos, same lies. The goal was $15,000 this time. I felt this kind of numb anger that doesn't even have words. I didn't cry, didn't shout. I just sat there staring at the screen, trying to understand how someone could be that shameless. I called the police. They said unless I could prove he used my identity for financial gain, it would be a civil issue. I told them he was literally collecting donations under my name. They said it was up to the website to handle. So I called GoFundMe again and sent more proof, this time including screenshots of his messages. They froze the campaign and said they'd review it internally. Meanwhile, people kept texting me. A friend said, "Man, I can't believe you didn't tell us how bad things got." I told him I was fine, that Dylan made it all up. He didn't believe me at first. "Why would he do that?" he asked. That's what everyone asked. Why would he do that? I didn't even know how to answer. Maybe it was about money. Maybe it was about control. Maybe both. But knowing him, it wasn't really about the money. It was about attention. Dylan loved being seen as a caring, selfless boyfriend, the kind who sacrifices everything for love. He wanted sympathy. He wanted to be the hero of a tragedy that didn't exist. A week later, GoFundMe refunded everyone. They even sent out an email explaining the campaign was fraudulent. But by then, the damage was already done. My name had been plastered all over social media. Friends, relatives, even coworkers had shared posts about my recovery. Some apologized after the truth came out. Others didn't. A few probably still think I made the whole story up to cover my own tracks. And Dylan, he posted a status that said, "People will twist anything when they can't handle love." I wanted to burn his entire digital life to the ground. But I didn't. I just blocked him everywhere, filed a report, and tried to move on. For a while, things went quiet. Then one night, I was scrolling online and saw another fundraiser, same city, same kind of wording, but different names. The patient this time was some girl he'd recently started seeing. I clicked through, and guess what? The photos were real, but the story wasn't. I reached out to her anonymously to warn her. She didn't believe me. I guess people like Dylan always find new ways to feed off sympathy. It's their favorite currency. It's been over a year since all that happened, and I still get random messages sometimes. People saying, "Glad you pulled through," or "You're an inspiration." I just thank them now. It's easier than explaining. But the thing that really stuck with me wasn't the scam itself, it was how fast people believed it. How easily a few photos and emotional paragraphs can build a lie that feels more real than the truth. Every time I think about it, I imagine all those people who donated, strangers, friends, coworkers, each one convinced they were helping someone fight for their life. And Dylan pocketed their kindness like it was spare change. I've moved cities since then, changed jobs, changed numbers, everything. But sometimes when I get an email notification from a charity site, I still feel my stomach twist. Part of me always expects to see my name again under some fake story I didn't write. It's strange. He didn't take my money or my stuff, but he took something harder to get back. My credibility, my sense of safety in my own name. Now, when someone asks me for help sharing a fundraiser, I double-check everything. Every photo, every detail. Because I know what it feels like to be on the other side, to have your face, your story, and your entire identity used as someone else's meal ticket. Dylan didn't just fake a crisis. He built one around me and made everyone believe it. And honestly, the scariest part wasn't that he lied. It was that everyone believed him without question. I never thought a landlord would show up at my door with a printed complaint and that my whole life would flip in 10 minutes. But that's exactly how it went down. One knock, one polite but tired-looking man holding a clipboard, and a single sentence he read off like it was gospel. We had reports you're running an illegal business from this unit. I laughed at first because it sounded like bad sitcom material. Then he handed me a page with Holly's handwriting at the top, and everything felt like it was sliding under a pool of syrup, slow and impossible to stop. Holly and I met at a mutual friend's barbecue. She was loud in a good way, funny, and had this weird way of making private jokes that made you feel like you were in on something secret. We dated for almost a year. It was messy but not toxic in the classic trashy sense, more like two people who liked chaos learning how to live with it. She borrowed my plants, broke my slow cooker, and always insisted on rearranging my bookshelf because the feng shui is screaming. I used to think rearranging things was cute. Turns out it was practice for messing with my life later. We split because I wanted a slower pace. She didn't. When I said I needed space, she told me I was being dramatic and left like she'd done me a favor. Typical breakups have a weird quiet after them. Ours had a silence full of unfinished text messages. I thought time would fix it. I was wrong. A week after we broke up, I started getting notes through the door, small typed warnings from the building management about suspicious activity. At first, I thought someone downstairs was pranking me. Then the landlord showed up with that clipboard. He read Holly's report out loud. She'd written that I was using the apartment to store illegal goods and ship them out at night. The note had specifics: alleged delivery times, a description of packages, even a fake online alias she claimed I used to coordinate pickups. The whole thing was laid out like a case file. I felt dizzy. I argued. I showed him my laptop and my work emails. I showed him my gym receipt from the night she claimed I was packaging orders. He nodded like he had heard everything before and told me there would be an inspection if complaints kept coming. Inspections are not subtle. They're the kind of thing that makes your neighbors watch you like a wildlife documentary. One more complaint and there'd be a formal hearing. Eviction paperwork is easier to start than to stop. I called Holly. She didn't answer. I texted her. She replied with a single laugh emoji and a message that said, "You really should be more careful." That's when I knew this was deliberate. She didn't want to scare me. She wanted to push me out. The next week felt like living inside a pressure cooker. Couriers started ignoring the doorbell and leaving packages in the lobby because apparently someone had been reporting unusual courier activity tied to my name. My neighbors, who used to nod and borrow sugar, started avoiding eye contact. I found notes slipped under my door asking if I was okay and if the police had been called. The police showed up once, asked a few bland questions, and left. Nobody was arrested. None of the packages were real contraband. The thing that was illegal was the story Holly sold everyone. I tried to get management to show me the complaints. They were cagey. "We have to protect the identity of complainants," they said. It sounds reasonable until you realize that policy helps people weaponize anonymous claims. I wrote an email, collected receipts, pulled my entire history of orders, timestamps, tracking numbers, everything. I printed it out and shoved it in a folder to bring to the hearing. Paperwork feels heroic when your life is threatened by rumor. Meanwhile, Holly kept escalating. She started texting mutual friends with screenshots of evidence she'd made, photos of my hallway taken at odd hours, a picture of a courier van with the caption, "Clock him in the act." She texted my boss from a burner account like she was worried about safety in my building. At work, people who used to invite me a beer started ducking my messages. It's funny and awful how quickly people will believe a story if it's got the right moral cloak on it. The meeting with the building board was uncomfortable and surreal. There were 3 other residents, the landlord, a sleepy lawyer, and me with a folder of my life's receipts. Holly didn't show up in person. She submitted a written complaint and her friend read it aloud. She painted this picture of me smiling at night while packages were loaded, of me handing cash to people in the courtyard. It was detailed and petty and designed to stick. I presented my evidence, delivery records, timestamps, phone logs showing I was at work when she claimed I was running orders. A neighbor even testified that they'd seen Holly taking photos near my door late at night. The board looked bored. The board also looked sympathetic to the idea that you can't be too careful. They told me they needed more time to investigate. That's code for we're running on the safe side and nobody wants to be sued. I left that meeting feeling like I'd climbed a mountain of paperwork only to find another peak behind it. Then came the anonymous call to the police from someone alleging suspicious activity in my unit. They conducted a welfare check and asked to look around. I let them in because what else could I do? The officers were professional but distant. They asked me to step aside while they scanned the apartment. Holly was outside the whole time, taking photos of the officers at my door and texting them to friends like it was a performance. After 20 minutes, the police left with nothing. That night, someone had broken into my mailbox and taken my utility bill. The idea that someone would traipse through my personal things to make it look like I had gone off the rails felt like someone had cut a piece out of me. I replaced the lock, reported it, tried not to think about who would stoop that low. The thing about betrayal is how ordinary the means are. It's not dramatic. It's just paperwork, photos, a few calls. That's enough. I started sleeping in a friend's place because staying at the apartment meant hearing every creak as a possible sign that someone was watching. I got a text from Holly with a screenshot of my own face, snapped from the door camera when I thought the lights were off. Captioned simply, "You can't hide." I felt hunted. It's a small, corrosive feeling in the gut that makes you defensive about every ordinary move. After a month of hearing the rumor echo everywhere and feeling like I was shrinking, I decided to fight back publicly. I made a post detailing the timeline and attaching proof. It wasn't some dramatic viral plea, just clear documentation. Friends shared it. A few neighbors who've been skeptical came forward and said they'd seen Holly taking pictures near my door. Momentum shifted a little. People started asking for proof again. Doubt crept into the narrative she'd created. But doubt is slow. Holly was fast and social and a better liar than I ever gave her credit for. She posted her own version of events on a community forum, now with a more polished tone and a few supportive comments from new accounts. There's a shell game people play with small communities. Keep the audience just big enough that truth blurs into opinion. She played it well. One night, I opened my front door and found an envelope stuffed with printed pages, screenshots, claims, a college of supposedly suspicious activity under my name. At the bottom, a handwriting I recognized and had read 1,000 times in 1,000 texts, was a line, "Hope you find a place people will trust you." I felt my throat go dry. The thing people never tell you is how exhausting it is to prove you're not someone you never were. The legal route is slow and expensive. The social route is messy and unreliable. Proof is heavy and time-consuming. Lies are cheap and fast. I kept doing the work, phone calls, emails, meetings with lawyers, more evidence. I lost hours at work. I stopped going out. The city started to feel like a smaller place with every passing incident. Eventually, the building board closed the file, citing insufficient evidence of wrongdoing. It wasn't a victory. It was a bureaucratic shrug. Holly never faced the consequences she deserved. She was never banned from the community forum, never fined, never legally required to stop. She simply moved the narrative around until it settled into a different corner of people's minds. Some people apologized when they learned the truth. Others never did. I moved out 3 months later. It felt like giving up, like admitting that the space I'd once called home was compromised beyond repair. But living in fear of being watched is its own slow eviction. Friends helped me pack. I left my plans, because the last time I fought for tiny greening things, I nearly lost my mind. It felt small and symbolic to leave them behind. A new place, different building, different locks. Fresh air. Holly popped up on social media months after I left with posts about setting boundaries and protecting the community. She shifted from aggressor to guardian in her own narrative. I didn't engage. I didn't want to feed her story. I'm okay now. Not polished, not healed, but okay. I got a job in a different part of town. New friends who ask questions instead of assuming things, and a door I locked twice. I sleep without headphones sometimes. I let my plants back into sunlight. That's small, but it's mine. You know that feeling when your phone keeps ringing and you already know it's another pointless call? That became my daily soundtrack because of Mark. Every buzz, every voicemail, every piece of junk mail crammed in my box. It all led back to him. It wasn't an accident. It was his idea of a joke. It started with politics, which was weird because I'd never cared much about politics. Mark did, though. He treated elections like sports. Debates were his Super Bowl. He had signs in his window, pins on his jacket, stickers on his laptop. It wasn't that he believed in the people he supported. He just loved the drama of it all. We met during a campaign event a friend tracked me to. I didn't even want to go. I just wanted the free snacks. Mark was handing out flyers and talking too loud about something he probably didn't understand. He noticed me laughing under my breath and called me out in front of everyone. Somehow, that turned into a conversation. He was charming in a pushy way, like someone who refuses to lose a debate even if the topic is what to eat for lunch. We started dating a few weeks later. At first it was easy. We'd argue playfully about random stuff, music, movies, politics, and then make up like it never happened. I thought the arguing was part of his personality. Turns out it was his entire personality. After about 6 months, I realized we didn't agree on much, but he didn't want agreement anyway. He wanted submission. If I said I didn't want to talk about politics, he'd accuse me of not caring about the world. If I disagreed, he'd tell me I was brainwashed. Conversations turned into lectures, and dates turned into debates. When I ended things, he didn't cry or yell. He smirked. That should have scared me more than it did. The first week after the breakup, nothing happened. I blocked his number and moved on. Then my phone started buzzing nonstop. Calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I answered one out of curiosity, and it was a volunteer asking if I'd like to help support the cause. I said no and hung up. 2 minutes later, another call. Different organization, same pitch. By the end of that week, I was getting 50 calls a day. My voicemail filled up with recordings from campaign offices across the country. I figured it was some database error. I signed up for one of those remove my number lists, but it didn't help. The calls multiplied. I started getting text messages too, everything from donation requests to rally invites. One even said, "See you at the meeting, comrade," which was somehow both funny and terrifying. Then came the mail. Stacks of envelopes from every political group you could imagine. Far left, far right, environmental, libertarian, animal rights, veterans groups. If it existed, they had my name. I'd open one, and it'd say, "Thank you for volunteering," or "We appreciate your commitment." Some even had my donor number printed on them. I called a few of them to ask what was going on. One woman told me I'd signed up through a volunteer hub. Another said my information came from a partner database. None of them could tell me who started it. That's when I remembered Mark's smirk. He was the kind of guy who bragged about being able to dig up people's data online. He used to show me how easy it was to fill out online forms using someone else's info. He'd do it as a party trick, sign me up for mailing lists as a joke. I'd get coupons for random stuff like horse feed or hunting gear. I thought it was harmless. I texted him from a new number. "You did this, didn't you?" He replied instantly, "Consider it civic engagement." I wanted to smash my phone. The calls got worse during election season. Sometimes my phone would ring 3 times in 1 minute. I'd block numbers, and 10 new ones would appear. The mail stacked up so high I had to get a second bin. I couldn't even tell what was junk and what was important anymore. I missed a biddle because it got lost in the mess. He wasn't just signing me up randomly. He was signing me up strategically. I got invitations to events that were on opposite sides of town at the same time. I'd get conflicting emails from groups with completely different ideologies. Once, I got a welcome packet from a political action committee that included a t-shirt with a slogan I wouldn't be caught dead wearing. My friends started getting texts too. He put their numbers down as emergency contacts or references for my supposed volunteer work. They thought I'd gone off the deep end. One friend messaged me saying, "Dude, are you running for office or something?" I tried everything to stop it. I changed my number, but he found the new one within a week. I reported the spam, but every call came from a new line. I started answering just to yell at the callers, but they were always polite volunteers who had no idea what was happening. The real punch to the gut came when I got a letter from the county registrar thanking me for expressing interest in running a local campaign office. It included a form to finalize my application. He used my name, my address, and even uploaded a photo of me he found online. I had to go in person to the office and explain that I wasn't running anything. The staff laughed awkwardly, but it didn't feel funny. For months, it didn't stop. My email was a swamp. My spam folder looked like a political battlefield. I started getting messages from people I didn't know asking my stance on issues. One person even offered me a job on their campaign because of my experience organizing. I couldn't escape it. I considered going to the police, though what I say. My ex-boyfriend signed me up for political lists. It sounded stupid, almost petty. So I went quiet instead. I deleted social media, used only encrypted email, stopped giving out my number. My friends joked that I'd turned into a ghost. Maybe I had. After about 6 months, the calls finally slowed down. Not because he stopped, but because the election ended. Campaign offices shut down, mailing lists expired, and the chaos faded. I thought that was the end of it. Then I started getting mail again, but this time it was about continuing support for next year's elections. I read the sender name, Mark. He'd started his own political awareness group, whatever that meant. The letter said he was inspired by recent events and wanted to thank those who supported his passion for democracy. They even had my name listed as one of the founding volunteers. I laughed, but it wasn't funny, it was exhaustion. I didn't bother confronting him. I just gathered every piece of mail, every screenshot, every text, and gave it to a lawyer. They sent a cease and desist. He ignored it at first, but when I threatened to file a harassment claim, he finally went silent. Still, the mess he made outlived the relationship. Months later, I'd still get the occasional text from some political group asking for one more donation. Some even addressed me by first name, like we were old friends. I don't even bother replying anymore. What kills me is how clever it was. He didn't break anything. He didn't steal. He just flooded my life until I couldn't move without tripping over his prank. He didn't need to touch me to make me feel trapped. It's been a year now. New number, new address, no mailing lists. When people hand me a clipboard or ask for my email for updates, I walk the other way. If someone says they're volunteering, I feel this tiny jolt of dread. Sometimes I still get random junk mail with my name on it. Last week, it was from a candidate in a city I've never even visited. It made me laugh for the first time. Maybe some of those old forms are still floating around, ghosts in a server somewhere. Mark probably thinks he taught me a lesson about apathy. He didn't. He taught me that obsession doesn't need fists for yelling. It just needs persistence and a database. Now I keep my voice quiet, my name off lists, my number private. I still vote, but I do it early and silently. I don't post selfies with a sticker. I just slip the ballot in and walk out, hoping nobody ever decides to care about me that much again. The first time Julia sent herself flowers, I didn't even know about it. I just started getting weird looks at work. People would smile at me in that pitying kind of way, like I'd done something embarrassing but sweet. One coworker even said, "You must really be trying hard to win her back." I had no idea what they were talking about until someone showed me a photo Julia posted online. A big bouquet of roses sitting on her desk with a note signed, "From him. Always." The him was me. At first, I laughed. It was ridiculous. Julia and I had broken up 3 months earlier. It wasn't messy or hateful, just done. We met at a friend's party, dated for a year, and realized we weren't right for each other. She wanted to get married, settle down, build a life. I wanted to travel and figure things out. We ended it on neutral terms, or at least I thought we did. Julia was always big on appearances. Every photo had to be perfect. She reapplied lipstick between grocery store aisles. She'd post paragraphs about true love and tag me in them even if we just had a fight the night before. When we split, I figured she'd be upset for a while and then move on. She even posted one of those choosing myself quotes, so I thought she was fine. Then the flowers started. At first, I thought maybe it was one-time drama, like she wanted to make it seem like I still cared. But then it kept happening. Every week, new bouquet, new note, new post. He never gave up. Still thinking of me. Some love stories don't end. I'd scroll through my feed and see strangers commenting hearts under her photos. Friends would tag me jokingly or DM me like, "Bro, didn't you say you guys broke up?" I have to explain it wasn't me. Half of them didn't believe me. I tried ignoring it, hoping she'd stop. She didn't. It got worse. She started tagging my friends in the posts, like she wanted to make sure everyone saw them. She'd write captions like, "He knows what he lost." I finally texted her, "Stop using my name for attention." She replied, "What are you talking about?" Then blocked me. That week, another bouquet showed up at her job. This one had sunflowers, her favorite. The note said, "You'll always be my light." She posted a photo, tagged my mom, and wrote, "Raised him right." My mom called me that night asking if we were back together. I nearly dropped the phone. When I told her no, she hesitated and said, "Well, she said you two were talking again." She even showed me a message. I asked what message. My mom read it over the phone. It was a text from me saying I missed Julia and wanted to see her again. It wasn't my number. That's when I realized it wasn't just about fake posts anymore. Julia was building a fake relationship. I started digging. A friend of hers who still talked to me told me Julia had been telling everyone we were working on things. She showed them fake screenshots of texts between us, even fake emails. When I saw them later, they looked real. My contact photo, my writing style, even my weird habit of not capitalizing I. She'd read old messages I'd actually sent and spliced them into new ones. I tried reporting the posts. They didn't violate any rules. It wasn't harassment technically. It was just her story. Then one afternoon, I got an email from HR at work. Someone had sent them screenshots of Julia's posts and said I was harassing an ex by sending unwanted gifts. I had to explain to my boss that none of it was true. Thankfully, he believed me after I showed him my bank records. No florist payments, no deliveries, nothing. Still, it was humiliating. That night, I got a message from an unknown number. You shouldn't have denied it. No name, but I knew. The next morning, a delivery truck pulled up outside my apartment. The driver asked for me by name and handed me a receipt for a flower order worth $180. He said they'd been ordered for pickup. My name, my phone number, but not my card. She was using my identity to buy flowers for herself. I called the shop. They said the payments came through Venmo under a name similar to mine but not exact. When I asked for details, they said they couldn't share customer information. I begged. The woman on the phone finally sighed and said, "It's a woman's name, if that helps." That's when I went to the police. I showed them screenshots, fake posts, the messages, everything. They filed it under harassment but said it'd be tough to prove identity fraud without financial damage. They told me to block her and keep documenting. Blocking didn't help. She just made new accounts, new profiles. Sometimes she'd use throwaway names and post photos of us with captions like, "He finally came home." People would message me asking for updates, like we were some soap opera couple. I thought about deleting social media altogether, but part of me wanted to keep watching so I'd know what lies she told next. It was like watching someone ghostwrite your life in real time. The weirdest part was how normal she acted in between. Mutual friends said she'd go to brunch, talk about work, laughed like nothing was wrong. She never mentioned me in person. The fake version of me lived entirely online and through those flowers. After a while, even my family started doubting. My sister said, "You must have said something to make her think you still cared." My friends made jokes about me being the romantic type. I stopped trying to explain. It was easier to let them think whatever. Then one night, a delivery showed up at my door. Another bouquet, same handwriting on the card. "You don't have to pretend." I called the shop again and asked who placed it. The woman paused, then whispered, "She's been doing this every week. You might want to talk to her in person before it gets worse." I didn't. I called the cops again, showed them everything. This time, they actually reached out to her. After that, the flower deliveries stopped. The posts slowed down. Eventually, she made her accounts private. For a while, I thought it was over. But then, a few months later, I was tagged in another post. It was a collage of all the flower pictures with a caption, "Some love stories just don't fit timelines." That post got over 1,000 likes. She never contacted me again. She didn't have to. The story she built kept running without her. People still think we had this epic, tragic love story. They still tag me in anniversary posts, still message me like we were some kind of legend. The truth doesn't travel as fast as a beautiful lie. It's been 2 years now. I've moved, changed jobs, cut most mutual connections. I still get flower ads online sometimes, and it makes my stomach twist. Every bouquet looks the same: roses, lilies, and that fake little white card. I don't even like flowers anymore. I can't walk past a florist without thinking about how easy it was for her to rewrite reality. Sometimes I wonder what she tells people now. Maybe she's got a new hymn. Maybe she's still posting photos and tagging someone else who's just as confused as I was. But me? I don't send flowers. I don't even keep them around. Love shouldn't come with receipts. I've known my best friend Lily since we were kids. We grew up 3 blocks apart, walked to school together, and went through every awkward phase side by side. It wasn't romantic, not even once. She was like family, closer than a sister, really. So when Zed came along and decided to destroy that, he didn't go after my stuff or my reputation in public. He went after the one friendship that felt untouchable. Zed and I met at a gym. Not even a cool story. He spotted me while I was doing bench presses, started chatting, and then we got a drink after. He was funny, confident, the kind of guy who always knew what to say to keep people laughing. We hit it off fast. Within a couple months, we were basically inseparable. We hang out most nights, talk about stupid things, share playlists, all that. I liked that he was direct. He'd call out my nonsense without making me feel small. I thought that was loyalty. It wasn't. Lily and Zed met a few weeks later at a birthday party. They got along instantly. She told me later she thought he was charming but intense. That was her polite way of saying there's something off about him. I should have listened, but I was in that new friend phase where you see what you want to see. I wanted to believe he was solid. It started small. He'd ask casual questions about her, like, "You two ever have a thing?" Or, "You sure she doesn't like you?" I'd laugh it off every time. Then he started making weird jokes about us being too close. Like if Lily texted me while we were hanging out, he'd raise an eyebrow and say, "Man, she's obsessed." It was annoying, but I brushed it off. Then one night after a few drinks, he said, "She told me something crazy." I asked what, and he grinned real slow, like he was enjoying it. "She said she's in love with you." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my drink. It made no sense. Lily's dated plenty of people, and I'd been her wingman through half of them. She never even looked at me that way, but Zed just shrugged and said, "Hey, I'm just telling you what she said." I told him he must have misheard. He smiled again, that smug little half smile that made me want to punch something, and said, "Maybe you're just too blind to notice." The next few days, he kept bringing it up. Little comments, always casual, like, "You should talk to her before things get weird," or, "She looked at you different last time." He was planting seeds. I didn't realize it then. I thought he was being dramatic. Then he told Lily a different version. She called me one afternoon, her voice shaky, and said, "Why did you tell Zed you had feelings for me?" I froze. I told her I never said that. She didn't believe me right away. Zed had told her we had this deep talk about how I'd always loved her, but never said anything. Apparently, he even repeated fake lines I said, word for word. Things like, she's the one person I can't lose, but I can't have her either. I would never say something like that. It sounded like a bad movie script. She said Zed told her he was worried about her leading me on. That's how he framed it, like he was protecting me. I tried to laugh it off, told her Zed was full of it. But the damage was already done. She sounded uncomfortable, distant. We hung up on weird terms, and for the first time in our lives, I didn't text her the next day. A week later, Zed started acting cold. He'd avoid me at the gym, ignore my messages, and suddenly text late at night saying stuff like, "Can't believe you'd lie to me, man." I didn't even know what I was supposed to have lied about. When I asked, he said, "You know exactly what." The whole thing made no sense until Lily stopped replying altogether. I went to her apartment to talk face to face. She didn't open the door. I heard her voice through it though, flat, tired. "Just go home." I begged her to tell me what happened, and she said, "You know what you said to Zed." That's when I realized he won. He convinced her I confessed feelings, and convinced me she'd done the same. We both thought the other was lying. It was like he'd written a fake script and handed us both our lines. I tried calling him to confront him. He didn't pick up. I saw him at the gym later that week, and when I approached, he laughed and said, "You should have just been honest, man." I didn't understand why he did it at first. What did he gain from it? It wasn't about jealousy. He never tried to date her. It wasn't about revenge. I hadn't wronged him. It was control. He wanted to see how much influence he had, and he got it. The fallout lasted months. Lily and I barely spoke. When we did, it was awkward and enforced. Every conversation felt like walking on glass. She didn't trust me anymore, and I didn't trust her either. Even when we both started realizing Zed had played us, the damage was already baked in. The truth finally came out one night when one of Zed's friends messaged me. Apparently, Zed had bragged about breaking up a lifelong friendship as a kind of experiment. He said it was easy because we both trusted too much. He thought it was funny. I saw red. I called him, screamed at him, told him I'd beat the hell out of him if I ever saw him again. He just laughed. "It's not my fault people believe me," he said. I blocked him after that, but the silence between me and Lily didn't go away. Trust doesn't bounce back like that. She apologized later, said she should have known he was lying. I told her I should have too, but the friendship never felt the same. People like Zed don't just lie. They study you first. They figure out where the weak spots are and then poke until something breaks. He saw how much Lily meant to me, and he saw how much I trusted him. He didn't need to ruin me publicly. He just needed to ruin one connection. After that, I stopped letting people get close for a while. It wasn't a dramatic decision. I just got quieter, kept things surface level. I started watching how people talked about others when they weren't around. That tells you everything you need to know about someone like Zed. I moved apartments, switched gyms, changed my number. Months passed before I'd even realized I hadn't heard his name in a while. Then one night, Lily texted me. Just one sentence. "I saw him today." My stomach dropped. She said he was working at a new gym near her job, acting like nothing had ever happened. He smiled, said hi, even asked how I was doing. She said it gave her chills. I told her to block him. She said she already had. We met for coffee after that, the first time in nearly a year. It was awkward at first, but slowly the rhythm came back. She laughed at my bad jokes again. I realized how much of my life had been warped by one person's boredom. Zed didn't steal anything physical. He didn't hack my accounts or key my car or post lies online. He did something quieter, something meaner. He took trust, something that took years to build, and snapped it like it was a toy. I heard from a mutual acquaintance later that he did similar stuff to another group of friends, stirring rumors, whispering lies, flipping people against each other. Some called him manipulative. Others just called him interesting. I call him a parasite. It's been a few years now. Lily and I talk again, though not as much as before. We both moved forward, but the scar is there. She still flinches when someone brings up his name, and I can't hear that smirk in someone's tone without feeling a flash of anger. Every so often, I'll get a random message from an unknown number saying something like, "You miss her, don't you?" I delete it without replying. Maybe it's spam. Maybe it's him. I don't care anymore. Some people break hearts. Others break trust. Zed broke reality, just enough to make us question what was ever true between us. I'm careful now. I keep my circle small. When I tell people I have a best friend, I make sure they understand that's not an invitation. It's a warning.
I met Andrea the summer after sophomore year at one of those parties where nobody really knows whose house it is, but everyone shows up anyway. The music was too loud, the floor was sticky from spilled drinks, and someone had broken a lamp hours before. She stood out right away, mostly because she didn't care about any of it. She had this loud laugh that cut through all the noise, and she looked like she owned the room. When she started talking to me, I didn't even think twice. She was funny, confident, and kind of intense, but it was the kind of intensity that makes you feel like you matter. We started seeing each other almost every day after that. She'd text me good morning before I was even awake and call me before bed like we were already in something serious. At first, I liked it. I'd been through a breakup a few months before, and Andrea made me feel wanted again. She'd bring over food, leave her clothes at my place, talk about the future like it was already mapped out. I thought she was just passionate. Everyone kept saying we were moving fast, but I brushed it off. It wasn't until later that I realized how deep she'd gotten into everything. She'd grab my phone just to check something, but then scroll through my messages. If I didn't text back quick enough, she'd show up at my dorm or send me 20 messages in a row. I remember once she cried because I didn't post her on my story, saying I must be embarrassed of her. It was small things that started stacking up. My friends started avoiding hanging out when she was around because she'd interrogate them about who I was with when she wasn't there. By winter, I started pulling back. I'd make excuses not to hang out, say I had too much work or was tired. She noticed, and every time I tried to talk about maybe taking a break, she'd spin it into something else. How I was afraid of commitment, how she loved too hard, how I'd never find anyone who'd care like she did. I knew it wasn't healthy, but I didn't know how to end it without making things worse. Then, out of nowhere, she dropped the biggest bomb I'd ever heard. One night she called, crying, saying she needed to tell me something important. I thought it was another fight. Instead, she said she was pregnant. I remember the exact feeling. It wasn't shock. It was this wave of heaviness that settled in my chest. I just froze. She said she'd taken 3 tests, that her period was late, and that she'd already made an appointment to confirm it. I didn't know what to say. I was only 21, barely managing my classes, and the idea of a kid felt unreal. She sent me pictures of the tests, then later sent an ultrasound photo that looked legit. I stared at it for a long time, feeling like my entire life had shifted in one message. After that, she acted like everything was decided. She started planning how we'd move in together, how we'd tell her mom, what we'd name the baby. She even made a list of baby names on her phone and sent me screenshots, asking which ones I liked. I didn't feel ready, but I didn't want to be the guy who bailed. I told myself I'd figure it out, that I'd do the right thing. The weird thing was, she never let me come to her appointments. I offered to go with her, even said I'd drive. But every time, she had an excuse. The doctor canceled. Her mom went with her. The clinic didn't allow extra people. It never lined up. One day, my friend Tyler was over when she sent another ultrasound photo. He looked at it and said he'd seen that exact image before. I laughed it off until he pulled it up on Google. Same picture, same date, even the same little code at the bottom. My stomach dropped. I didn't even know what to say. I read it over and over, comparing them side by side, trying to find differences, but it was identical. I didn't want to believe it, but something in me already knew. All the weird excuses, the constant control, it made sense now. She wanted to keep me close, and when she felt me slipping, she created the biggest reason she could think of. When I asked her again about going with her to her next appointment, she exploded. Said I didn't trust her, said I was stressing her out, said I was hurting the baby. That line hit different now. It sounded rehearsed. I didn't argue. I just said okay and hung up. I knew if I tried to reason with her, she'd twist it again. I stopped answering her texts. Then she emailed me saying she'd lost the baby. 2 days later, she said she'd lied, but only because she wanted to see if I'd step up. Then she said I'd made her lie by pulling away. The stories kept changing. My friends told me to block her on everything, so I did. She started messaging from fake accounts, sending long paragraphs about how we were meant to be. A week later, she showed up outside my job, crying, holding a box of the baby stuff she'd bought. My manager had to walk her out. After that, she started spreading rumors. She told some people I'd forced her to get rid of the baby. I got messages from mutual friends asking what really happened. I didn't even try to explain anymore. A few months later, one of her old friends messaged me and confirmed it. Andrea had found those ultrasound pictures on Google. She even bragged about how real it looked. Said she wanted to see how far I'd go before I caught on. That line stuck with me. I moved cities a few months later. I needed space. Every time my phone buzzed, I'd get that same rush of anxiety. It took a long time to stop expecting her name to pop up again. Sometimes I wonder what her endgame was. Did she actually think we'd live together and raise an imaginary baby? Or was the lie itself the point, to prove she had power over me, that she could still pull me in even when I tried to get out? Every now and then, someone will mention her. Hey, didn't you date that girl Andrea? And I'll just say yeah, and leave it there. I don't tell them the full story anymore. It sounds too unreal. But I remember it all. Every photo, every message, every time she used guilt like a leash. It wasn't just about the fake pregnancy. It was about control. About how easy it is for someone to rewrite your life when you start doubting your own reality. Now, when I start seeing someone new, I move slower. I keep space between what's real and what I want to believe. Because once you've had someone fake a pregnancy just to keep you, you stop assuming people won't cross certain lines. I haven't heard from Andrea in years, but every once in a while, I'll see her name pop up on social media. New haircut, new boyfriend, same kind of posts about new beginnings. I don't click anymore. I just keep scrolling.
If you've ever worked in an office where gossip spreads faster than emails, then you'll understand exactly how fast Kira wrecked my life. One morning I walked into work, and by lunch people were avoiding me like I was radioactive. Nobody said anything to my face at first. They just kept their distance, whispered when I walked past, left empty seats beside me in the break room. I thought maybe I'd spilled something on myself or smelled weird or whatever. It wasn't that simple. By the end of the day, my coworker Lee finally told me what was going on. She pulled me aside in the hallway and said, "People are saying you have something contagious." I laughed because it sounded so ridiculous. She didn't. She said, "Kara told people she found out you're sick." My brain froze for a second. Sick? With what? She said Kara told everyone I had something serious. She didn't name it at first, but apparently she'd been dropping hints all week, saying things like, "Don't drink after him," and "I hope he's getting treatment." By the time I found out, half the office already had their own version of the story. I felt like I was in some messed up rumor war and didn't even know it had started. Kira and I used to date. She worked in the same company, different department, and that's how we met. At first, we kept it quiet, then people started noticing. It wasn't a huge deal. We went out, had fun, and it was easy until it wasn't. Kira was the kind of person who always had to be the center of attention. Every story, every joke, every event somehow came back to her. If something wasn't about her, she found a way to make it about her. I didn't mind it too much in the beginning. It was kind of charming, in a chaotic way. But after a while, it got tiring. Everything turned into a test. If I didn't text back fast enough, it was because I didn't care. If I talked to another woman, even just a coworker, it meant I was disrespecting her. When I finally ended it, she acted calm about it. She said, "That's fine. I knew you'd get bored eventually." Then she smiled like she'd already planned her revenge. I should have known. The rumor didn't stop with coworkers. It started leaking outside of work too. A friend from another department texted me saying someone had told her I had an infectious condition. She didn't even want to say the word. I found out later Kiara had told a few people I had an STD. She said she felt bad for the girl I was dating now. It spread like wildfire. I went from being just another guy at the office to being the person nobody wanted to share space with. People who used to hang out with me at lunch suddenly had other plans. Even when they didn't believe it completely, they didn't want to risk being seen as too close. That's the thing about rumors like that. It doesn't matter what's true. All it takes is one whisper and people start pulling away to protect themselves. I confronted her once, right after I found out. I didn't yell. I just asked why she'd do something like that. She rolled her eyes and said, I didn't say anything specific. People assume things. She said it like she was proud of how clever she'd been. Then she added, maybe now you'll understand what it feels like to be avoided. That line stuck with me. I tried to go through HR about it, but she was smart. She never said anything directly in messages. She always said it in person, or she'd make it sound like concern, like she was worried about me. HR said unless I had a proof, there wasn't much they could do. I could tell they didn't want to get involved. It got so bad I started avoiding people myself. I'd eat lunch in my car, leave right at 5, keep my head down. My work started slipping because I couldn't focus. I'd walk past people whispering, and even if they weren't talking about me, my brain said they were. The worst part was how it bled into my personal life. My mom called one night and asked if I was okay. Someone had messaged her on social media from a fake account saying I was seriously ill. I knew exactly who did it, but again, no proof. A few days later, my new girlfriend got a message from another fake profile. It said, you should get tested. That's when I realized Kiara wasn't just trying to humiliate me. She was trying to isolate me completely. I talked to a lawyer who specialized in workplace defamation. He said technically, if I could prove it damaged my reputation or career, I could sue. But proving it meant getting witnesses to admit what they heard and from who. Most people didn't want to get involved. They were scared of picking sides. So I started collecting what I could, screenshots of vague posts, messages, anything that hinted at the rumor. One day, I got my break. A coworker accidentally sent me a screenshot of a group chat where Kira was laughing about it. She said, I can't believe people actually think it's true. Someone replied, you literally told them it was. She sent a laughing emoji. That was enough. I took it straight to HR. I printed it out, gave them the whole timeline, and said if they didn't handle it, I'd go public. That finally got their attention. They called her the next day. She denied everything at first, but when they showed her the screenshots, she started crying, said she didn't mean for it to get this far. She said it was just a joke. I don't know what they said to her after that, but by the end of the week, she was gone. Quit. Transferred. Fired. I didn't ask which. You'd think that would fix things, but rumors are like stains. Even when they fade, you still see the outline. People eventually stopped treating me like a walking hazard, but there was always that small pause when someone new met me through work, like they'd heard something once but couldn't remember what. I stayed at that job for another year before I moved to another city. I didn't even tell people where I was going. I just left. It's been a while now, but it still gets under my skin. Not the rumor itself. I know who I am, but the way people reacted. Nobody asked me directly. Nobody said, hey, I heard something, is it true? They just distanced themselves quietly. It's wild how fast people's instincts turn from sympathy to suspicion. Every time someone brings up office gossip now, I shut it down immediately. I can't stand that stuff. I've seen firsthand how a lie, even one said as a joke, can ruin someone's sense of safety. I still see Kiara sometimes on social media through mutual friends. She's moved on, new city, new job, posting quotes about forgiveness and growth. It makes me sick, but I scroll past. I'm not wasting another second thinking about someone who turned me into a rumor. If there's one thing I learned, it's that you can't outrun lies. You just outlast them. Eventually, the truth sticks around longer than the gossip. But the damage, that stays with you. And now, every time I walk into a new job, I can't help but notice who looks at me a second too long. Just making sure, I guess. Making sure I don't look contagious.